Hello, good morning. How are we all? It's pretty miserable outside, isn't it, hey? Damp and cold. And today is Tuesday, the 3rd of February. Right. One of the things I came across a few months ago in Norfolk was they're advertising free Wi-Fi. And that it's not. There is no free Wi-Fi in town. You have to rely on some of the local shops to tap into this Wi-Fi network, which isn't brilliant, but it's something. But like I say, that's from the shops. And the district council had a meeting a few days ago, and on their Facebook page, they did this post talking about the connectivity. As a result of our discussion with Mobile UK, phone companies should have a better understanding of what it means to live where coverage is so poor, and that's something that needs to be done about it. We are pushing for more investment in North Norfolk. We're also ready to bugger that one, with the industry, because we know how important good mobile connectivity means for our residents. Absolutely. And there's the map. Blue actually stands for no connection whatsoever. Red is very poor. Orange is poor. There's only 2 green areas here that actually have good service. Anyone struggling with reception, have a look at this. It works well. Not quite sure what that is. Suggest changing the scale of, I imagine that's piss poor, non-existent and just about if you stand on a radiator. So we've got quite a few. That's a good point, actually. Brandon Gray. We know how important good mobile connectivity means for our residents. Good use of the English language right there. It's really not hard. Tell all the mobile companies they have to share masts. If you can get a signal to call 999, you should be able to make a call to anywhere, anyone. It is ridiculous. I cover all of East Anglia and I pay for 2 phone contracts. And I have half a chance of actually being able to make a phone call. Yeah. The pretty colouring in map does not represent a true mobile phone coverage of North Norfolk. I'm in the red area. And to add insult to injury, BT moved my phone line to digital 3 years ago with no explanation. 3 years ago? We only had ours done last year. I didn't realise they started it so quickly. Yes, Sandra Wood. This has got to be properly sorted before switching off analog landlines. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, fair comments, aren't they? Very fair comments. Julie, when I was in a particular job role supporting mobile users of Norfolk Mental Health at Kelling, on chatting with consultant there, they said it was dangerous not to have a good mobile phone signal, causing the missing important call supporting their colleagues and potential service users. That is absolutely true as well. A lot of the services out there do rely on mobile for contact, loan working, and their notes, and it can be pretty bad in patches. So that is very true. Right, so we've pretty much got a lot of people saying it's not very good. So we've got the clear evidence there from a lot of people. This is a lot of comments. Wow, 500 yards from my house. Okay, so we have... Anyway, this is... What's that like? This is Facebook, Norfolk District Council Facebook, to do with this meeting. Let's follow up on this meeting and see what they have to say. If I can press pause. All right, let's see. Okay, I think everybody is getting ready and setting up by the looks of it. Okay. There's the map again. Right. Let's wait and see how this pans out.
Morning, everybody, and welcome to the January meeting of Norfolk District Council's Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Very nice to see you all. And just quick housekeeping, if there's a fire, which we're not expecting, please exit by these exits and go down the stairs, and the loos are in the foyer out there. So,
Hi guys, I'm Holly from Dr. Hare and I'm here today.
Do we have any apologies for absence, Adam?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Penfold, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any substitutes?
No substitutes, Chair.
Lovely. Do we have any declarations of interest from members today in matters to be discussed? Check letters are no. And so we're going to go straight into our mobile connectivity review session with our Mobile UK representative. And we have here Gareth Elliott, who's the Director of Policy and Communications for Mobile UK. And we do have Menekshane Meach from BT in the background, but we'll see how many questions are directed to her. Anyway, thank you very much for coming to see us today. Asking you to speak with the committee is a reflection of the concerns and frustration expressed by North Norfolk residents over poor or no mobile connectivity. And our experience is that on-the-ground coverage is often different from that predicted or modelled by operators, and that this has real-life consequences. We're hoping our dialogue today will encourage increased investments by MNOs, mobile network operators, or collaboration between them or with stakeholders in order to bring rural levels of connectivity closer to that of urban areas. So we were going to start off with a quick vignette of what it's like to live in rural North Norfolk.
My name is Richard Hambling.
This is a recording from a school, somebody at a school.
Chair of Governors at Alba Primary School, a small school of 125 pupils in rural North Norfolk. Our electricity supply is predominantly overhead, as are most rural areas, and subject to unplanned interruptions. We have a UPS supply for the internet that lasts about 3 hours. Alba Primary School was forced to close on the 13th of June due to a power outage that lasted around 6 hours and started after the parents had dropped off children. As there is no mobile network signal in the area and with no power, there was no landline. The school was effectively cut off from any communications and hence unsafe for children to remain.
God!
We're obviously looking to improve our UPS system, but this of course costs at a time of severe budget pressures. When everything is completely digital, this situation can only deteriorate further, as without a mobile signal in the event of any power cut, everything will be lost.
True.
Mobile signal in many parts of your area is non-existent, and the situation of any power cut, either fault or maintenance, will leave many people completely isolated with no means of communication and with emergency services. I believe the risks are not appreciated by the people right now. the owner of the networks instigating the changeover should provide a UPS system that lasts long enough to meet the outage requirements of GEM for every household that doesn't have a mobile signal indoors.
Lovely. Well, there's two problems bundled up there with the digital switchover, but it's mostly the mobile connectivity issue there. And we just thought that was just to show you what it.
I guess it's going to be the same for the
And
hospitals
we're
as well,
hoping
then,
we
is
can
it?
work together to make things better. That's the purpose of this morning's meeting.
I mean, if that's the school,
So,
the police stations and
we've
the
got
fire
some questions
stations.
to ask you. Is that okay? I know that there may be constraints in what you can say, and I don't want you to feel that you're being bombarded, but we thought, as we have you here, we'd make the most of you and ask some questions that we thought were answers to which we'd find quite useful. So would you be happy with that? Okay. So, Councillor Gray, do you want to start off?
Thank you. And thank you for being here to field these questions. As the chair said, I appreciate you may not have immediate answers.
That sounds like Mel Gray.
My question is, for North Norfolk, what is your latest assessment of where outdoor voice calling on network is not available? That's as handset cannot register, no service, cannot make a normal voice call. Could you provide the assessment in writing within 20 days after this meeting, including the data it relates to and the method or source used, as in, is it modelled data rather than actual on the ground drive testing or crowdsourced? If you could separate outdoor and indoor data, that would be really helpful as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Just if I can introduce myself, I am shouting mouth. There we go. I won't be a shouting mouth, I promise. I'm the Director of Policy Communications for Mobile UK. I represent the now three main mobile network operators. That's Virgin Media, 2, Vodafone 3, and EE. I just in quick response to that question, data on their specific mobile plans, I can't provide. That is commercially in confidence. That is their data that you have to really engage with them. However, I think there are some good news coming in terms of the investment that is happening over the next few years. And just hopefully if it helps or not, I used to be a councillor myself. I've sat on your side. I was councillor for London Borough of Richmond. It's equally a place that has limited coverage. And I think part of the discussion today would be worthwhile having of some of the planning issues that we've had as well here, which has made it difficult to deploy.
Let's see who's talking.
In terms of the data, I just wanted to sort of reiterate that we are regulated to provide data to Ofcom, and that is available now through the Map Your Mobile service. Now, I know there are concerns about the veracity of that data, and that by the previous minister, Sir Chris Bryant. He took matters into his hands and he has sought to have that updated. And what that means is that the threshold, the signal for the strength of threshold that it records has been improved. For instance, it used to be essentially based on a ability to download 2.5 megabytes per second. I think in the modern world and the way we use data now, that has been doubled to 5 megabytes per second as a good signal. And equally, I think what's more important is it has reduced the pixelage, which is effectively 100 square meters, has been reduced down to 50 square meters. So again, it's a lot more accurate. The one thing I have to advise on that, though, is it is a predicted signal coverage. And the reason for that is we cannot provide a on-live coverage. It's a wireless signal. It has many, many variables. The weather can affect it. We've got obviously near the coast at the moment, and equally buildings and trees and other things can affect signals. So what you take on one day can be very different from the others. And I know you've worked with Streetwave as well.
Blame the trees, cut them
we
down.
have some reservations about how they collect their data. For instance, it is only on roads. It's only on bin lorries, which are essentially one big steel box, which has been told to me that you can work out the travel of that vehicle because you can't work out what's behind it. You can only work out what's in front. So that's not to say it's useful. I think it's extremely useful. One, to give you an understanding of the coverage on the ground. But again, that's a snapshot of only when that coverage is being taken. It is again not a live picture of what is going on over a sustained period, and that is as long as you are running that contract. As I say, we are very much in negotiations with Ofcom and others about how we move forward on this. I did want to mention the investment that's going on. I know that's a big part of important to you all. We are in a very interesting stage in mobile at the moment. All three operators are investing heavily in their networks. It's not going to happen overnight. But for instance, 5G standalone, we now have commitments with the government by 2030 to have 90% of all populated areas covered. Some operators are going further than that. Vodafone 3 very much in terms of 99.95 by 2035.
Does that include North Norfolk?
What that means, 5G standalone, if that is an acronym that you don't understand, it's one thing. We have 2G, we have 3G, we have 4G, we have 5G, we have 5G SA. So I can certainly understand why this can be confusing sometimes. But 5G standalone is effectively moving to a fully 5G network, both in the core and in the radio access. So essentially, it's 5G all the way through. What we have at the moment is a combined hybrid network, effectively 4G in the core and 5G at the edge. So that is very much the Vodafone 3 deal. Essentially came with a committed £11 billion of investment, which has to be done by 2030. So that is it's a legal commitment they have to do, and they are very much moving on that as we go. Virgin Media 2 have the mobile transformation plan, which is £700 million annually, around £2 million a day. Again, that is to extend their 5G SA network as well. And that is, I think they've recently announced that they have gone to the 60% of the population coverage as well. EE equally are moving very, very quickly. And again, they have that commitment by 2030 and are investing heavily as well. So we are very much up to 2030 expecting changes and improvements. The other thing worth mentioning, I think especially in areas such as this, is the 2G, 3G switch off. That is essentially turning off technologies that use 2G and 3G and refarming them into 5G. That will mean a much improved service, especially if you can only get 2G or 3G at the moment, as you move to 4G as well. That is all expected to be happen by 2033. On the 3G side, we have now essentially by the end of this month or quarter, all three networks will have switched off their 3G networks. And to say 2G, we're taking a little bit of time because we want to ensure that it goes out and correctly. So I can't give you specifics on that. I think that we provide that to Ofcom. That is how we are regulated. Equally, though, BT are here and the other operators through me have said that they're very keen for you to reach out through me, and they will have specific conversations about their individual networks.
With our Sprint delivery service, we can get this over to them in as little as 20 minutes. No?
Thank you very much indeed.
But I'll screw
Great.
it.
Did you have any follow-up questions to that?
That was a lot of information. Thank you. There's a lot that's come back there. It was good to hear that it is model data. Just one follow-up, if you don't mind. We didn't really touch very much on what the public can do to help with that. Now I know there are apps that exist to help to report data. Are they really helpful? Would that be something that we should be looking to do?
I'd say in terms of data on the networks, we hold data on our networks, and I think one of the things, again, with sort of mapping data that is provided to us, we know our networks. It is more, I think, about what I would suggest is using it as the business case to build resources into teams, such as I know your digital champion is here today, and it's something we very much support. Creates a single point of contact in the council for us, because often we don't know who to talk to. We are ourselves on the other side. There's a multitude of us, who do you talk to? And I'm happy to put myself forward as a single point of contact. Please funnel through me and I can funnel that through to the operators. And I know having early discussions, that's been a difficulty that's been raised with me. So please do use me. I think on the public side of things, I would say, I've looked into some of the planning permissions and the media that's gone around it. I think we need to turn into a place where there is leadership for wanting that capacity and coverage. What I've seen on quite a few of the applications, and especially in the media, is a sort of a move to, essentially an objection basis, and on, I think one of them was called a rocket, one of them was called too high at 15 meters, just for an example. On 5G in urban in a sort of suburban area like this where we don't have rooftops, 20 meters is really the technical height that we need to be. So what may be a subjective view to yourselves, a technical operational view to us, is getting it at that height so we can get over buildings and broadcast. And as I say, I think, we've had a lot of conversations about it shouldn't be there, it should be someone else. We don't just pick a location out of thin air. We do it because it matches the radio physics, it matches in with the existing network. That is the ultimate location. And I've had many conversations with councillors who want it down at the end of the road. But we live in a world now where digital inclusion is important. You get your applications, your banking needs a text or whatever, moving it down the road only means you get a weaker signal, if you need it in that area. And as we move forward with technologies, which things like fixed wireless access, which is broadband via a SIM card rather than a cable, you're going to need to be closer to those masts than not. So I think having sort of more leadership of why this is important and the benefits of it, rather than necessarily just pushing the sort of visual side of things and citing, would be helpful. And I've seen, and I have to say, the conversations with the operators have said that your planning departments have been very good, and they've actually been engaging more recently in a much more positive way. And we certainly welcome that. And again, I think that's why for us digital champions are important. So I think working with the public to understand, what that piece of infrastructure is, why it exists, what it does, and the benefits that accrue from that, rather than necessarily a sort of objection-based approach to these things.
Does that answer your question, Mal? I wasn't quite sure that we'd have.
Great. That's great. That is great information. I don't know whether maybe there's been a slight miscommunication in what I was really asking there. I'm sorry if that's the case. Is it okay if I drill it down just a little bit more, Victoria?
Keep going, Mel.
Can we do that off? Can we do that
Yep.
offline, actually?
Yep,
we do
we
that?
can do.
Because I have a question about crowdsourcing data.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which actually might come up later
Yeah,
in the discussion. If it
fine.
doesn't, we can
So
take
thank
that
you
offline.
anyway. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
for your
happy to
response.
have that conversation. And apologies if I misstrued the question.
It was a very good response, but perhaps it wasn't quite what Mal had expected, but it was. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Very useful information. I would just like to highlight now this map that we have created, which is based on our best understanding of mobile coverage in North Norfolk, following that. This is the street wave data overlaid with testimonials from residents. And I just wanted to bring it up at a fairly early stage in our discussion, just to show why we've invited you here, really, because can't see from here because
Because it's shit.
my new
That's
my
why
new
you're
glasses
here.
aren't good
Get
enough.
out.
But I think red and orange isn't is poor or very poor. So there's but yellow is adequate and green is good. So that's just to show you another reason why we brought you here, really, is because our
Orange is poor.
on the ground experience is again at odds with what we're told it should be, and we just wanted, this is the best we could produce in terms of what we're experiencing now, so we just wanted to highlight that. That's
Yep.
okay.
No, I can see that there. I mean, as I say, I'd say my only concern with the company you used is they can only generate on the roads, and that is a wider picture. But though it's done by bin lorries, so
Yes.
it's an interesting picture to then be able to push it further. But I think it's very useful to have that, and I think that gives a starting point to engage that conversation, and that is very helpful for both sides. So I'd be very
By
happy
bin lorries.
to
You've collected this
I mean, perhaps we
information
could
from bin
come back in a
lorries.
year's time and find that it's all bright green. That would be very nice. And I would just like to raise the 4G, because I understood there's a capacity issue with 4G, isn't there? So we had lots of comments in the summer because the 3G got turned off and there wasn't anywhere people to go, especially when the population swells in the summer. So that was an issue people have raised quite a lot. Is that?
Well, I can't speak for specifics.
Expected.
I don't know
okay.
into that. But as I say, I think the whole process of the 2G, 3G switch off is to provide once that is the capacity that. So just for example, 3G, it used 2% or less than 2% of our network running, but it was 35% of our energy usage. So it's a very inefficient and legacy technology. What we want to do is get that over to 4G. So I think, now that we have, I say VMO2 is the last operator now to be turning off its network, its 3G network, and that is now, hopefully you start to see the benefits of 4G and 5G. We have had a long engagement, and we're still engaging very much so up to 2030 to inform and educate people about why that's happening. So I think it's an ongoing process.
Right. Well, that's perhaps another thing that we could do to help.
These days, work moves fast. That's where Grammarly comes in. With an AI
Would be to let our residents know the specifics of it. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Gray. Okay, so Councillor Cushing, did you have a question to ask?
Yes, thank you. I think in part you may well have covered this in your previous answer, but I will ask the question again just for further clarity. How reliable are Ofcom's coverage predictions for North Norfolk, given they are based on modelling of signal strengths by the mobile network operators? How does the predicted coverage correlate with real-life data, i.e. that provided by crowdsourcing? Is it reasonable to use this data for investment planning? Thank you.
Yes, I think I covered most of that. But I think on the crowdsource, I hadn't really covered that point. I know you wanted to raise that yourself, and thank you for that. As I said, the Map My Mobile has changed. It now has a higher strength threshold, and it equally has a smaller pixel density. So it is a different beast now. On crowdsourcing, it equally includes that as well. And that crowdsourced data is not from the operators. That is third parties that provide that. So that is people's experience. And if you go onto it now, it provides that. There's two sections, essentially a map with our coverage predictions, and then the crowdsourced data as well. So as I say, from that point of view, there is some interesting reading on that, and it certainly shows, what people on the ground experience as well. As I say, from our point of view, what we are looking at, we can't, you cannot provide live on the ground 24-hour, over a whole year. It's just not feasible. What you've got here, the data you have, is a snapshot of why that is being taken out, and once they're not doing that, obviously you won't have that data. So I'd say Map My Signal, Map My Mobile, apologies. It is, I would, definitely consider using it. I think it's definitely much more usable than it was previously. And, we are constantly updating that. We provide that data regularly as we go forward. And as I say, we've got things like the 2G, 3G switch off. We've had the shared rural network. We've got 5G. We're very much rapidly investing in the 5G standalone network. And as I say, those commitments up to 2030, hopefully those figures will be improving, over the next few years.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Cushing?
Just one, if I may, because you say you get those from crowdsourcing data from third parties. Is that all from
Ofcom works with other companies. Then,
right. So what was it? Can you give me some examples of some of those third parties where they'd get that from?
As I say, Ofcom do that. That's not
Ofcom. Oh, right. You don't do it directly. Okay.
But does Map My Mobile go into Ofcom?
So it's an Ofcom service.
Right.
So just to be clear, we provide our data. We're regulated to provide data on our networks to Ofcom, who then provide that on the mapping software they do. They also provide the crowdsourcing, but that comes from third parties.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Housden, did you have a question at this point?
Sorry. You've got the map in front of you, so I represent that blue southwestern section, which is Rainham, Tatterset, Dunton, Hempton, and Pudding Norton. The landowners there have offered land for free with no lease, nothing other than the peppercorn rent for a mast or masts, plural, in those locations, and there's been absolutely no feedback at all from any of the operators for masts. And that's an area where there's no signal. And I'd like to understand why, when landowners offer land for free, access they would put in just for the companies to put the mast up, There's been absolutely no
Why?
take-up.
Why?
And in fact,
got
there's not even
money.
been any response following a meeting that was held for
They should
those
be able to
areas.
purchase land quite easily.
Unfortunately, I have to disappoint you because I don't know the specifics of those issues or how those negotiations have happened. Certainly happy if you want to drop me an email, I can pass that into the operators. And equally, just for information, we also now represent through as a Secretariat Mobile Infrastructure Forum, and that is the four main tower companies. So that's Cornerstone, MBNL, Wireless Infrastructure Group, and Cellnex as well. So again, I'm happy to do it. You know, obviously, there are many negotiations that go on, you know, across the whole country, and plans are in place. So you know, whether it fits into those plans or not, I don't understand. But certainly, what I can do is very much have that feed that information back. Yeah.
Well, that's really helpful, actually. Having a conduit for questions and specific issues would be really, really great.
Yeah.
If that's the only thing that happened after this meeting, will be very great.
Very helpful.
Thank you very much. I'm sure lots of other things are going to happen as well. So, Councillor Heinrich, did you want to ask a question?
Thank you, Chair. In North Norfolk specifically, are there cases where you could improve voice coverage for emergency calling, but delivery is currently stalled? If yes, what are the main blockers? Power, backhaul, site access, land rights, planning constraints, or commercial viability? And which of these blockers most commonly prevents progress? Thank you.
Again, I'm not going to talk about specifics, but
Why? What are you here for then?
you know, but having looked at planning and equally the we've seen, for instance, MPs who have objected to masts. I've seen councillors objecting to masts. You know, that is a blocker in itself. You can imagine, you know, any planning application that goes in has gone through due diligence. It's gone through the understanding of how it impacts with the existing network and the radio physics around that. Equally, you know, we work within the planning system. We don't want to just build masts anywhere and anywhere. The planning system must, you know, equally puts us that they have to be within, you know, matching to the street scene as best they can. So I think, you know, what would be most helpful is more support from councillors for our infrastructure as it goes in. I think sometimes there is often perception that we're building masts that look more like electricity pylons or as high as electricity pylons and equally have antennas all over the place. Often that is not the case. We've done quite a bit of research on perception versus reality, and I think you probably...
Right, that bell is my mother, so I will be right back after this. What should I leave you with? Shall I leave you with a bit of music? That's what we did last time, wasn't it? Now, let me think. Let's go for the first thing that comes up, which is... Actually, I'm not going to go for the first thing that comes up. There you go. We've got a bloke here. Not quite sure what his music's about, but we will move over to him and then I'll sort my mother out. There we go.
Build a website you love with Wix,
And an advert.
where your words
There we go. Let's get back on it.
Unfortunately, I have to use my mother, who normally just doesn't want anything there because she doesn't know what it is, doesn't know where it is, doesn't know what it looks like, and doesn't know what it does, but she just doesn't like it. Sorry, Mum. But you know, it is. I think, you know, what I would think I like my working with councillors is explaining what the mast does, the benefits it brings, what you can do with that, and equally the technologies that are coming. You know, we are going to be far more dependent on our mobile phones, and as we go forward, we're going to be far more dependent on devices. And I think this is the Internet of Things, which is going to be the vast connectivity to our networks. I think many people think it is just the devices that we have here. I think as we go forward, this will be a more minority connection to our networks. So I think perception and leadership at a local area, I think investment in your digital champions, again, you've mentioned me being that funnel, that single point of contact. We also need that at a local level as well. And I think equally engaging with not just your district council, your county council and the mayors as well. And you wouldn't be surprised, but we are working with towards or as part of the current government's consultation on planning reform. We're very much working with them on that at the moment, so we can enable us to build these networks faster and more rapidly across the whole country.
I'll give it just my follow-up, Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you on the planning issue. I chair the planning committee here. And we have had cases where residents have been complaining loudly about the lack of signal and then complain when you try and put a mast up, or the operator tries to put up a mast. The two don't go together. But I would urge you to talk to us.
Because the masts don't look very nice, do they?
Councillor
Really?
Brown, we'd be certainly happy to meet with you and our planners to try and resolve some of the issues. The next applications that come through, we can try and maybe sell more effectively. No doubt I have colleagues behind me who still want to attack it, and some of the residents. But we don't have the mast, we don't have the signal. We've got to resolve these planning matters. I'll leave you to deal with power networks.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that the key point here is that there is no mast, there is no signal. And I think if the rejection and objection to that happens, we can't build that physical infrastructure. You don't have the wireless signal, and I think it is really linking the need for that physical infrastructure to have that wireless infrastructure. And as I say, I think understanding why it is at a certain height, why there are the cabinets there, and why it has to be in that location. Now, that's not to say we can't have those conversations. And I must admit, one of the things we do tend to try to do is have pre-application discussions. But often what we find is this: if an application is rejected, we then have to go to the planning inspectorate, and in the vast majority of cases, we tend to win that.
Councillor Raz.
Thank you. Do you generally prioritise replacing older masts with newer ones, or do you prioritise looking for new sites for the masts? Thank you.
I mean, they do go on
Interesting question. I think
the water
it's not a
towers as well,
simple
don't they?
answer. It's case by case basis. I think if we're looking at the
boosters that come off
plans
the water towers.
up to 2030 and beyond, I would say it's vastly focused on upgrades. So therefore utilising existing infrastructure that's already there. If you look at some of the details within the merger, it's about consolidating those networks as well, which may be reducing the number of masts across the country. Again, financially, it is in our interest to consolidate. We would far rather upgrade than build new masts if it's already there. But, and this is a big but, the current planning system makes that difficult in many occasions. For instance, if we want to add a couple of antennas to an existing infrastructure, that may put us into full planning. And as you can probably imagine, that puts us into a number of further issues. It adds time, it adds delay, and equally, it doesn't necessarily need to have happened when there was an existing mast there. So we have to weigh that up. And there are things as well within the current framework, for instance, that if we want to build a slightly larger mast in an existing footprint, currently we have to build it on that exact footprint. If we move it, or because it's a slightly wider mast, that can put us into, again, full planning. So, we can imagine we're having discussions about the wording of what is technically feasible rather than the exact dimensions. So I think, to that question, we want to upgrade if we can. It is difficult to find new sites sometimes, and equally we've talked about landowners and where we can find sites. It is always easier if we can do it, and equally I think just one myth I'd like to dispel here is we do share our infrastructure. It's often suggested to me, and I get this quite a lot, that we don't share infrastructure. Originally, under when with the 4 networks, there was 2 joint ventures. One built essentially on behalf of 3 NEE, and the other built on Virgin Media O2 and Vodafone. So that sharing is very much part of what we do. The shared rural network was very much on that principle, And I think with the recent merger, that sort of consolidation is very much expected to go forward.
Good, thank you very much. I've got Councillor Toy waiting. Councillor Hankins. Councillor Toy, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, good morning, everybody, and thank you again for coming today. I'd like to pick up on a couple of points if I could. One, the map, if you could just maybe consider taking that away, because it's not just Streetwave. It is overlaid with a lot of data we've collected. We also got the County Council who've done the Streetwave to actually do a concentrated month full of data on top of what we'd collected over a period. And actually, yes, whilst it is streets, that's where the majority of people live and where they need their signal. So I'd like to encourage you maybe to look at what we've got there a little bit further to share wider. So my background is 23 years in radar and communications. Yeah, I was an objector to a mast. The reason being, I flew the world installing stuff, and instinctively you sometimes feel this is not the right place. I tried to engage with the installation company, I think it was Cornerstone in this case, to say, look, if you can explain to me, because my residents know my background, if you can explain to me how this fits in, where the cells will link up, where it may work for 5G in future, I'm happy to try and sell that. But there are these other sites that I suggest you might be able to do. And I could not get that in-depth conversation with them. It was just, no, we don't like that. We can't use this. That's where we want it. So if we're going to have proper dialogue, we need to have proper dialogue. So if you can take that back, that actually when you're talking, if you want councillors to assist in getting it through planning, then you need to assist us to have the argument to take it forward. I did not have that argument, therefore I had to stand with my residents who didn't.
If you want help to get something through, speak to the councillors. But yet, I've also seen the other way where things are trying to be put through, the councillors don't agree to it, and it gets ignored anyway. So,
like it because of, you know, location and the physicality, and I could not give them a reason that says actually it will give you this. So if I could ask that you take that away, so that it becomes part of the conversation, that we aren't we're not all technical Luddites. Actually, some of us do have some knowledge, so I'd appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's all I've got for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
If I could just,
Yeah, of course.
very happy to take that away. I think Adam has my email, so please feel free to pass that on to me.
Thank you.
With Vinted's new electronics category, you can earn with no selling fees again.
Want whiter teeth fast but worried about the damage? Reset your smile with Oral-B Clinical Intensive Whitening in just 1 day. Its unique technology gently lifts away stains instead of scrubbing them and prevents new ones. So you can get whiter teeth and stronger enamel in just 1 day.
really? Just 1 day?
Thank you very much for being so helpful. That's very good for us. Councillor Hankins.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question addressed to you, sir. I represent an area where, according to our map, has either very poor or poor mobile connectivity. In some cases, it's actually a threat to health in that defibrillators are basically useless without a mobile phone system. So my question is, I understand, I think from what you said that your future plans are confidential. Is that correct? So in that event, how am I going to, are you going to communicate to my constituents as when their service will be fully restored or fully implemented? How will that happen?
Well, I think on that one, that is going to be a conversation you'll have to have with the individual operators, because obviously they have their individual networks within those areas, and I can't speak for what their networks are on the ground. So I would suggest start that conversation, and I'm happy to facilitate that. Again, I go to the point that we are investing heavily in our networks. There's multiple things happening: the 2G, 3G switch off, the 5G and 5GSA commitments we've made to government. Let's say, on the basis of the merger, and that's £11 billion of commitment on that side of things. Equally, just on the Vodafone 3, and I don't want to speak on just one network because I represent all, but
£11 billion, but we can't tell you.
biggest sort of change you're going to see with that as well is being able to engage on both networks. If you are a customer of one or the other, that is now going to sort of essentially be able to use. So if you had 3, you're suddenly going to get Vodafone's, and if you're on Vodafone, you're going to get 3's network on yours as well. So there'll be, again, improvements happening soon. But again, on the specifics, that will be the individual operators.
I don't think that answers my question with respect. What I want to know is, what is the process? How do I inform my constituents that in order to get answers to the rollout of a mobile connectivity, what do they do? Who do they contact?
Again, I can't speak on behalf of the plans that they have in your specific area, but I'm happy to facilitate that if you want to put that through to me and engage, so you can engage with the individual operators.
Good. That's very helpful. Thank you very much. We have another vignette if we could play to you.
Yep.
We have this is the Coast Guard. We thought it would be interesting to talk to the emergency services, so we have a clip from the Coast Guard speaking.
Our phones, iPads and laptops all operate on either EE or Vodafone in this area. Phone connectivity is extremely patchy, with a noticeable drop in performance on Vodafone since 3G was switched off. As an agency, we're currently introducing new vehicles with Starlink to ensure reliable voice and data comms on scene, though it will be some years before this rollout is complete. Particular not spots for us are immediately under the cliffs from Weybourne through to Bacton, where there's typically little to no coverage. Sheringham and Cromer promenades are a good case in point. Not only is that a potential impact for us in terms of incident response, but potentially for a member of public trying to report an incident via 999.
So that's just, we put that in just as an example of, I think you're getting the flavour here. that real life is much more difficult than perhaps it's perceived by the operator. So something perhaps again you could take back with you. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, reality.
Councillor Leith, you're coming in next.
Yes, thank you. Residents are concerned about emergency access during power cuts, particularly as traditional landlines move to digital VoIP services that may not work without power. In that context, what is your approach to resilience for emergency voice calling in North Norfolk, including backup power at sites, expected duration of backup, and how you prioritise restoring service where there may be no alternative way to call for help? Thank you.
It's also, I hope they're going to touch on shops as well, because all the shop tills, all the credit cards are all done via the internet, the touch. So I'm really hoping they're going to pick that one up as well.
Across the patch.
Yeah.
It's straying us a bit into digital switchover, but it's a really big issue.
On digital switchover, which is the PSTN network, that is a fixed line network. That is with BT, and as Mobile UK, we don't represent BT.
Yeah, analog.
So on that side, I can't talk on that. However, as mobile is sort of becoming a sort of backup in itself, certainly it's one of the reasons we are upgrading the network. So again, the 2G, 3G switch off is intended to provide, that better network capacity. But I think more on power resilience, which I think is part of that question. That is a conversation we are having with government at the moment. It's very much, especially with, we've got Storm, is it Chandra at the moment going on, and we are very much dependent on the power networks. And if power goes off, we are impacted ourselves. And part of that discussion is very much ongoing with the power companies themselves, because at the moment there is no prioritization of mobile networks. Essentially, it's based on numbers of people. we are trying to work with them to see if, as part of that prioritization method, it might be considered about getting mobile networks up, because equally we're part of the solution on that as well. We provide connectivity to the emergency services. We do have, you know, on the ground teams that go in, provide things called COWs, funnily enough, cells on wheels, which is essentially a vehicle with a temporary antenna which can provide temporary coverage. So we certainly very much have, you know, we have commitments to that we ourselves to do that, but I think the very much conversation is very much with the power companies. Just for instance, just an example, often a simple solution that's provided this, or a considered simple solution, is just power up and have battery backups on all our networks. You know, that has been estimated to cost nearly £2 billion. Equally, there are questions of what kind of battery do you want on there? How long does it need to be for? You know, if you have a storm that's out for 24 hours, a 1 hour battery is not really going to be great in that instance. Equally, you're in a more rural area here, that would tend to be power generators. We've talked about planning. People don't like the idea of a power generator on site. Equally, it expands the footprint, it adds additional infrastructure, it grows the site.
Pretty noisy.
That equally adds complications. Then you have fuel on site. And what we've tended to find recently is in some of our rural sites in Scotland and other places, people steal the fuel. It is not a simple solution at this stage, but hopefully I can say that it was very much part of an ongoing discussion we are having with government about how we can work this, and especially I think, you know, very much keen to work with power companies, because just as one example, you know, the amount of power lost over a year is around half an hour, I think, on average. So 30 minutes over a year, you know, that 2 billion cost, we need to be factored in as to where it is and where the focus needs to be. So as I say, I think that those conversations are being very much had at the moment.
An average
So
over a year.
everything you need is on here.
Yeah.
Orders
Really?
appear here,
Yeah.
and with a click and collect, we can get
Yes.
things ready in as little as 1 minute, so they can just grab and go.
Screw fix again. We do actually have a
Thank
screw
you very much.
fix
I
in
think you'll
North
find the
Yorkshire.
average power outage in this area is probably rather more than half an hour a year, actually. It's more like 24 hours probably, because that's another of our issues. That's probably why it's such
Yeah.
a prevalent issue, but that's a very helpful answer. Thank you very much indeed. Any follow-up questions?
I think the last one we had, it went on for about
No?
6 hours.
Okay, Councillor Rouse.
Sorry, I just have a question going back to the mast. I think it might be beneficial for maybe district councillors to link up with the mobile networks in order to find ideal sites for masts, to sort of limit the amount of pushback from, you know, constituents. So I just wondered if that might be something we could forward.
I think that's an interesting
Come
question.
on. I mean, looking at this map, they must know the range of each mast to know that how many masts do they need in those specific areas, to then be able to map the masts out and then look at what land places are available, let alone what they can probably attach, what is it, boosters to? I mean, that they must know, right?
I think, you know, there is a limit to what I think people will try to consider for where they would like a mast, as opposed to then having the understanding and the radio physics behind it of where that mast
Where we need
should
a mast,
be.
not where we'd like
You know,
one, but where we
I
need one.
recognise your point in your 20 plus years of that. That's not normal for most people, but you know, if you've got knowledge, that certainly is. So I think, you know, very much the plans that we have, we will put forward our recommendations. I do think sort of in that planning and that discussion point, and that's why digital champions are so important. We can have that discussion then. But as I say, you know, we've talked about data and maps, and you know, what I would hasten not to add is that you use them to suggest that's where a mast is without actually knowing how the existing network works. We often get you know, options that are put to us that just don't work with the network, and or they're, you know, it's too close to an existing mast, it could actually interfere, or you know, there isn't the power, for instance, there, or the backup, or even the access to it as well. So I think we're very happy, you know, within the planning process to have those conversations, and I think again, it's why as a we are a national body, we are very much engaging with the government to try and push them towards funding for digital champions or digital placemakers. You know, the phraseology is there, but that I think is the best avenue for it.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Can we play the next? We've got another little vignette. It's our last one, if you're glad to know. But it's just to give you another flavour of what it's like living in the countryside. Mobile signal isn't very good. This is a local farmer, isn't it?
Lack of phone signal in rural communities is not just a health and safety issue, which could threaten lives, i.e. not being able to contact emergency services. It is also worth considering that farming or rural jobs are often while working alone. You may be working in a field or fields for the day or night without seeing anyone. Being able to check in with friends and family for a chat whilst driving your tractor or carrying out your role is good for morale and mental health. Good phone coverage also helps businesses with their duty of care of team members.
That's a slightly different perspective on the importance of mobile coverage. Lovely. Councillor Bayes, did you have a question?
Yeah, good
And
morning.
shops.
How do you log and track reported no service locations over time? And over what period do you monitor whether reports reduce following network changes or upgrades?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, sure. How do you log and track reported no service locations over time? And what period do you monitor whether reports reduce following network changes or upgrades?
The question specifically to Mobile UK, we don't log one. It will be the networks themselves which will log that. So I'm not going to be able to answer that question specifically, but they certainly have their they have their procedures to do that. In terms of then the post on that, I think again that's through the things like the Connected Nations report, which goes to Ofcom, which is reported I think twice yearly at the moment. So sorry, I can't answer that specific.
Understand that.
Can I ask a slightly tangential question to that one? We have, I think, 50 BT phone boxes left in the district, and some of those are left because the BT consider that the mobile coverage in that area is
50
to be able to make an emergency call, and some of them possibly aren't. But I was
I
interested.
don't think we should lose our analog
know where the signals
phones.
are they
I
using
really
predicted
don't.
data for that, so that they're leaving their phone boxes, and perhaps it's something for you, Menashe, as to why some phone boxes are kept and some phone boxes aren't. Is the data accurate that they're using?
I can't answer that
Because
one.
those-
That's a BT open one, but
To me, that seems that they're being left in the places where there's total not spots and you can't make an emergency call. And have they got that crystallarity of data? Because it seems quite interesting because no one else seems to have it.
Sorry, I can't answer that on EE, but I can take it away and get an answer to you or get an answer.
happy to work with you.
Yeah.
Yes, I that is not something I think it's equally there's BT run the emergency service network as well. That might be something to.
I think-
into this.
I think on something like this, that maybe there should have been a collective amount of questions that perhaps should have been submitted. So then the right people are sitting here able to answer these questions, because all it is can't answer that. That's not our data. That's not our information. And it's bloody annoying.
I was just again slightly tangentially, but you know, often I think one of the areas where we're sort of investing at the moment is capacity. So it's another perception point possibly worth raising is sometimes it's not always coverage that's necessarily the issue. There might be signal in the area, but it's about capacity and the number of people utilizing it. That's why the big sort of thrust of what we're doing at the moment.
When you think of all the new builds, what is it, 140,000 new builds that are going to be happening between now and 20, whatever year it was. With all the new estates, with all the new places that they're putting in, surely they are facilitating masts within these neighbourhoods, are they not? Because a lot of these are being built in and around these areas where it's poor to very poor. I tell you what, next time I'm going through some new builds, I'm going to look for masts. I really am.
Into the network. That's why 5G and 5G standalone are so important. I think just in terms of, I don't know if this, but we are. No, we say we were very much investing at the moment. I say I think that's a BT question.
It is. It's just we had a BT.
What are you investing in?
Ask you.
I've forgotten
I'm
already.
very interested because some people want their phone boxes back to put defibrillators in, for example, and they're not allowed to because there's not sufficient systems. It'd be quite signals. It'd be quite good to have clarity on that. So we'll get back to you.
Sure. Yeah, sorry. I'm just here
They
to
actually
kind of
make good
listen
little
and gather
libraries as well, the
information
telephone
so that I
boxes.
can feed this back to the business. But I am just a lowly account manager for Norfolk County Council. So I'm just here on that. Sorry, I can't answer.
No,
any
not
questions.
at all. Answering offline would be absolutely brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you. Super. Councillor Hankins, did you want to ask question 6 or? No? Okay, while you're thinking about that, shall we have Councillor Fletcher? I'll ask Councillor Fletcher to step in while you're.
Okay. No, I'm ready.
Oh, wow. Herbal essences. Oh, I remember this. Is it coming back? So happy it's back. Oh, it's dreamy. Oh, it's just like summer in a bottle. A field full of flowers, the sun shining on me. This was the iconic scent.
What if you could get your money moving with access to thousands of global stocks?
Okay, sorry, I think you've gone quite a long way to answering this question already, which I'm very grateful, but I mean, it is, I think, useful to sort of focus it. And that's if you could be, as specific as it's possible for you to be about plans actually to reconcile individual residents of areas to the presence or impending presence of a mast. And I found in casual and perhaps more serious conversations with residents that there's quite a good deal of anxiety, not simply amongst kind of NIMBYs or people who are kind of being militantly ignorant, but people have a genuine sense that things are happening behind their backs, which they don't really have any input into, and that one feels that this would be resolved if the phone companies were slightly more proactive in establishing relationships with local residents in order to promote this and outline the advantages that would come from the facilities you're offering.
It's quite a wide-ranging question.
Yeah, sorry, but I mean, it is an important one because it is something one gets. I'm not sure about my colleagues, but it's something one gets very much on the ground.
Yeah, no, and as I stated previously,
One does.
Myself, I've had these conversations. I know it's also very easy just to take a resident at face value and object to a mast because there is no real incentive to go the other way. And one thing we would ask is councillors, take more action on proposing the benefits of that infrastructure itself. As you said, people are anxious now about being able to access their banking, for instance. A lot of that comes through text to be able to get into your bank account. GP consultations are now via mobile apps. We're also very much cognizant of a move in terms of digital inclusivity of I think it's around 25% of people now solely access the internet on their mobile. And that is growing. We certainly saw during the pandemic where people had to take a choice because of cost of living of a broadband or a mobile. So they'd actually tend to go with the mobile for the personal relationship, but equally that gives them access to signals. And we know there's statistics such as I think 95% of all jobs now are available online. So if you don't have access, I can certainly understand the anxiety. I do take your point about relationships. One thing I do like to say is, while I will talk about the role of councillors, we don't necessarily always have a halo over our head either. And I think, so part of that is that conversation. And it's something I feed back to our operators. And reputationally, it's important as well. I think, we do work within the planning system. We have to work within those constraints. I think that again is why I go back to the digital placemaker, the digital champion, and we want councils to build up that capability and resource to be able to have that conversation with us. I understand a lot of the data and information we provide often it's complex. It's made up of lots and lots of acronyms, as in anything, and that's why it's always important. We feel that this digital placemaker, digital champion, can have the skills to engage with us as well, and engage with councillors to provide them with the armoury. I think just on a part of information wise, I would please, do look at the Mobile UK website. We've done a lot of work, especially on the sort of anti-5G during the pandemic, of trying to build the understanding of what 5G is, how it works, the benefits it provides. Excuse me. We've mentioned, for instance, certain sectors. Farming was mentioned earlier. That is a sector that is going to be automated, and we're already seeing things like autonomous harvesters and tractors and the likes. It is extremely important. So information is key. That I take your point about engagement, and as I say, as part of these planning reforms, it is conversations we are having with the operators at the moment of how they do that and how they how they work it. We do have a code of practice. It is on our website, which does govern some of these conversations. Do welcome if you look into that and read it. We have to abide by that, but very much take on board your points.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Housden.
Yeah, thank you. Can I just take you back? We've talked about coverage, and then you've just introduced another word called capacity. So in the context of increasing coverage for 90% of the population, I think you said earlier on, how does that work if there's a vast increase in capacity from industry, from business, and private use? Does the capacity reduce the 90% capability for coverage? Coverage and capacity, are they interchangeable, or does one rely on the other?
Good question.
With Vinted's new electronics category, you can earn with no selling fees again and again. Sell pre-owned electronics.
No, I think essentially coverage is about having the infrastructure in place and then providing that signal. Capacity is then about upgrading that infrastructure to manage the demand that is on those networks. So, for instance, if we build a mast in an area which is sparsely populated, and there is investment and development in that area, and there's a lot more people, that will affect the capacity of that existing mast that's there. So it's about then upgrading that mast with, let's say, either more power or added antennas to then provide additional capacity to that area.
So in an area like ours at the moment, is capacity in step with coverage?
It's not quite working with that. And again, I don't know the specifics of your area, so I can't really comment on that.
Why are you here?
Why a lot of what we're doing
You'd have done a bit of
the
research
focus of
before this
our
meeting.
plans at the moment are upgrades to existing sites, and therefore providing new technology, i.e. 5G or 5G standalone, which is in itself provides measurable additional capacity. Just for an example, you're talking about some antennas in the different technologies that can, let's say, handle 1,000 devices. 5G tends to be many more thousands of devices.
So the context of increasing coverage and the drive to increase coverage is driven at the same time to increase capacity as well.
Well, I think coverage, at the moment, 4G, for instance, through the shared rural network, we hit the milestone, I think it was in June last year, of 95% of the UK's landmass. It's now filling that in with additional capacity.
Fine. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Toy.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, for letting me in. I'd like to encourage a further conversation, listening to some of the things here and some of my experiences between BT, the mobile network operators, and the power people in our rural areas. They are all interlinked. So I can use an example in Albury, which we heard from the school. There was a further event that happened there. They've got moved over. They've got no mobile phone signal. They got moved over to fibre. The fibre went down. It was off for 4 days over a weekend. but the doctors couldn't operate because there's the doctors in that village, the garage, the pub. But the pub
See, this is the problem,
got
isn't it?
together and moved the Starlink from someone's house and put it on the pub so the pub could operate.
Analog
I thought it was an
phones
interesting,
were not broken.
I thought that was more important than the doctors. However, I suppose it was good therapy. But however, I think that there's a conversation to be had there in that how do we get a response to that kind of because it was predicted it was going to be off for 4 days and there's a lot of elderly residents there. So again, in that kind of conversation, through a contact with an MP, apparently there's an MP contact for BT, and we say, could we have one of your vans that puts a mast up and we can run it off a generator? And they responded on Monday when it was fixed. So a kind of, if we can do all the emergency planning we want if we don't get the support. So I'd like that to, again, even if it's just for North Norfolk, even if we convene here, that we have those conversations where we know the places that are likely to lose power, we can encourage National Grid to improve that. So that becomes less of a risk. So if there's a takeaway there, which I'm happy to be engaged with, and I've shared my card through my portfolio or through this council, I think that's a further conversation that I think would be helpful to get the delivery to roll out to all our residents that need these services. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that feedback, and I think as I alluded to earlier, there are conversations on national resilience at the very stage. We are having those discussions. And we're talking both with the government, the power companies, and others. It is an issue that is very much being discussed.
And what I'd like fed into that though is we as a council are interested, and where there are planning challenges, we're happy to be part of that, and we're happy to facilitate it in a constructive way with our residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bailey?
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned earlier when we talked about crowdsource and streetwave data and some of the challenges that has, and maybe some of the flaws in collecting that data. As a committee, we spent a lot of time trying to collate where the not spots were. To help you as operators or your operators, could
I think they
operators
know
provide
where
the sort of
the
top
spots
3 or
are. I
5
really do.
areas where they have less communication or less, they've got some not spots. In that way, we could then maybe talk to residents and warn them up to the fact that this could be resolved by having masks and therefore saving you time in planning. I'm just wondering if each operator could provide us with top 3, top 5 problem areas in our area.
I think that question would have to be to the.
Right, so we've gone from analog landline phones, banks on the high street, all that accessibility, to no banks, have banking hubs in vehicles that drive around, and now we have backup 5G vans that drive around when we lose power. That's crazy.
Operators, but happy again to facilitate.
Yeah, could you facilitate that? Because that would save us a lot of time, and I think it would benefit them. Because if we've got that and we know their top 3 areas, we could then lobby and say, would you like, this area improved? And then you've got the planning, you're pushing on an open door with residents wanting the improvement, and you'd have maybe less resistance. But yeah, if you could do that, that would be great.
Happy to say my details.
They know the areas. They know who their customers are.
Thank you very much.
Jesus. Turn your microphone on, mate.
Well, you mean rural roaming.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Turn your microphone on.
As an industry, we don't agree with rural roaming. That is why the shared rural network was put forward as the solution. Equally, this needs government investment. These are areas that are in many ways non-economic. They're some might say market failure. And the shared rural network was a £1 billion initiative with the UK government. It was a £500 million from the industry and the same from government. One of the reasons we don't agree with rural roaming is it doesn't provide additional coverage. it only provides, it could only provide, let's say, coverage up to where there is infrastructure. If there's no infrastructure, rural roaming won't solve that solution. So, the vast swathes, those swathes of the country, that last 5% will never be impacted by rural roaming because there simply isn't infrastructure there. There's nothing to roam onto. Equally, the shared rural network was deemed a more viable option because you're actually then increasing the capacity and the reach of all 4, now 3 networks, whereas rural roaming, you would essentially be sharing infrastructure. So that would have limitations on capacity. So again, if you think of...
Are you all geared up for this making tax digital thing? I keep worrying I'm going to get something really obvious wrong. Don't worry, mate, you'll be all right. I've got better things to do.
Worried about what MTD means for you? Sage makes it simpler for sole traders with helpful tax estimates. Get your free MTD software
Depends
today.
if we've
Search
got
Sage
internet
MTD.
access though through our...
Meet my new Febreze fabric refresher. I use it to fight odors and enjoy freshness. Its new 2-time action formula really fights odors and freshens fabrics. After I make the bed, after I catch my dog on the couch, providing freshness on fabrics for up to 24 hours.
Now, does that just hide?
With Febreze.
That just hides the smell.
Let's say one antenna of one
I
operator
never know.
who shares that, that's a
I don't
third
buy the
each.
stuff personally,
Whereas
but
if you shared rural network provides those antennas from all operators, so you're getting 100% coverage from all.
Moving on.
So I think we've engaged with government about this. We've had that discussion, and government has equally come to that solution that rural roaming is not the solution.
To that point, how much shared rural network investment is in North Norfolk? If that's the solution, how are we benefiting from that?
The shared rural network, I think, has largely been in Scotland and Wales, and to a lesser extent in England. I think there are discussions very much at the moment about what's next. Again, we are very interested in the conversation about what public investment there is for those areas that are not economically viable. So I think we're very much having that discussion with government at present. And I think it would be something, I think, as both the district, county and beyond, opportunity for that discussion to be had. But I think that's a public policy discussion and not necessarily for the operator.
Right. So to the naive observer, rural roaming would seem like the total solution. I know it doesn't increase the coverage, but it would enable you to benefit from your small, these may not be big areas. This is Norfolk, it's not a huge expanse, but there are patches where you just go from coverage to not coverage to coverage to not coverage, and rural roaming would seem to be a very good solution for places that aren't quite the moors of Scotland.
Again, this discussion has been had with both government and in the public discourse, and the shared rural network was seen as a better solution. I think it's also worth remembering we are private industries, we compete against each other.
Yeah.
Because
that's also the problem, because you don't want to spend the money because you've got shareholders.
It is why we are upgrading very, very quickly. I would suggest, on the alternative that's been suggested, we haven't seen as quick upgrade to new technologies as others. So again, I fall back on the point that this is a public policy discussion, but as part of that, and both government and operators, we do not feel rural roaming is the solution.
Okay. Councillor Bayes.
Yeah, I'm picking up on that competition. How can the public, certainly an ageing population in North Norfolk, ensure that they're getting the right, signing up with the right network to ensure it fits with what they require? I mean, I have a lot of people who, certainly more savvy people, younger people will say O2 works better in this area, EE works better in this area. When we're talking about an aging population who just want a mobile phone, they don't have that information. How, with that being what you've just said, a competitive area, how do they ensure they get impartial advice to make sure they get a mobile connectivity that meets
Look at that map and tell me where the competitive
information
area is.
we provide through, again,
Apart from the two greens.
the Ofcom, and equally the operators have their own data. It is, I think what we would ask is customers research on what is best for their area. You know, those conversations, as you said, you know, people generally tend to know. It's unfortunately sometimes we've seen people buy
all this technology at our fingertips, and we still have to do the work
rather than the
for you.
coverage that is available. So we do, you know, we provide that information again through those contract renewals. Again, have those conversations with your operators and make that judgment.
Can I ask one more, please?
Yes, of course.
So it's really just not like Mr. Toy, an expert in this area. So, but I do get asked this quite a lot. This county, or Norfolk in particular, this county of Norfolk, has probably the most number of churches in the area. In the UK, I believe it's 300 or over 300, I believe. And
Putting them on steeples.
you talk
by any
about heights
chance?
of NAS needing to be at least 20 meters, etc. I mean, you can walk from one village to the next, and there's another church, etc. I having worked for a Harbour Radio, they've just had their mast put on the Minster in Yarmouth, and they've increased the number of listeners who can now access that. My question is, being quite naive about masts and where you can put them, why, with that infrastructure all in place, and with the churches probably looking at a little bit different way of engaging now because of the low numbers that probably go to church, and looking at ways, some of the churches aren't even.
Extensions for abundant hair? Think again. New Pantene Grow Abundant. In each
I know it's
precious
still
drop,
being used.
the power of pro-vitamin complex.
Have you seen? There's a church down in Magdalen Street that is to let. I have never seen a church up for let. To be rented out. Never. Crazy.
No.
Open now, that's
Some
all closed
advert.
down. But at the same time, they are there. My question probably is, why aren't those infrastructures being looked at?
It's a good question. And I'm happy to say that there is an agreement in place with I think, the Church of England on that, but equally, it's not necessarily a silver bullet. You mentioned all the churches in this county. Some of them are 12th century. They're not necessarily built to host our infrastructure. They aren't physically able to hold it. You know, you wouldn't want to spire, you know, they're falling down because of a mobile mast being on it. Equally, we have certain.
Hey, we're back. I am so sorry about that. I don't know what I did. I obviously pushed the wrong button. So what we're going to do? So we're going to get back to it. There goes.
Going into the site, do they have 24/7 power? And certainly at the power we need. Often, while they may be in a rural area, they might not be in the right position for a mast. So it is something, as you've stated, we do look at them, and sometimes we can. I've seen some very interesting ways
I believe
that can
that.
be used. There's one where an angel's leg was a
These are
mast.
hundreds of
It's
years
quite
old
intriguing.
churches. They're not going to be
Equally,
able to
there
take
have
that.
been concerns about what's broadcast from those, and obviously a church is sensitive. So I think it is very much considered as where it is feasible, but again, it's not always a silver bullet. There are specific needs we need as an industry, not to mention 24/7 access, which sometimes churches aren't too keen on, to maintain and upkeep that site, and the security apparatus that has to go around it. So it's a very interesting proposition. When we have looked at it, and in some cases we've done it. But again, it's not always a silver bullet. And I think, it's often considered, well, there's a church in a rural area, why can't we use that? There may be specific reasons why it's not suitable.
Fair dues.
Any other members have any questions? Councillor Brown.
It is.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The speaker's a planning portfolio holder. Can I ask you if a
a proliferation of conservation areas causes a particular challenge to you via the planning system we have. It's either 81 or 82, I forget which conservation areas in our district, which means that sites tend to be more sensitive than in other parts of the country. Is it a constraint on you? And if it is, how do you deal with it, and what do you do to overcome those constraints?
I think the simple answer is yes. There are much more stricter planning rules for obvious reasons on sensitive sites. And obviously where there are more sensitive sites than normal, it is more difficult to deploy our infrastructure. So the simple answer is yes. Obviously we abide by planning rules and how they work, but that does constrain our ability to deploy that infrastructure in those areas. But we are professionals and we work within those constraints and we build where we can. But it does, it adds complexity, it adds cost, and it adds delay into the system. And I think often, we want to engage with councils to work on the ability to utilise those sites where possible in the most sensitive manner. But it is ensuring that it's not just a blanket objection. It is having that conversation to see how it's feasible rather than, as I say, a pure objection.
Just as a supplementary, if I may, my colleagues on the county council, I think, have worked proactively to try and identify potential sites up front as a means of overcoming objections in challenging areas. Is that something which is useful to you as an organisation, or do you think that my colleagues on the county council are, as it were, just flying a kite?
It certainly is helpful. I think though it's how that information is presented. We have a lot of these conversations. We've seen maps such as these, overlaying those maps with potential sites and making them available to operators can certainly help with our planning going forward. But again, I've had lots of conversations where I've been provided a lot of dots on a map, but is the information behind those dots helpful? So for instance, does it have fibre? Does it have power? What is the access like? Does it have a rooftop? What's the elevation? So it really is, once that information is collated.
Vinted's new electronics category means you can earn again when you sell to tons of potential buyers. So go on, tidy drawers again. Sell pre-owned electronics.
What is the information that is provided? Is it suitable for what we're doing? And then how is it made available? Is it open source, as in on a website that we can access? Is it part of the discussion that we can have at that pre-application stage or with that digital placemaker? So I think the simple answer is yes, it is certainly helpful, but it is making sure it is available in the right way with the right information. And again, I think the government, the DCIA, the Digital Communities Infrastructure Assessment or Accelerator Programme, part of that was about trying to provide digital platforms that operators could access when they're looking at planning and building their plans. So again, yes, certainly is.
Mr. Housden?
Yeah, you've come here today, and I expect you've done this in several places throughout the country. You mentioned early on about Scotland and Wales being sort of significant priority areas, and I do understand that. So from our perspective, where do you think North Norfolk stands in expectation of seeing perhaps some of the not spots closed off and the coverage improving and perhaps capacity improving?
I mean, that's a question I can't really answer.
For God's sake.
That's how operators have their own plans across the country. I think, the Scotland and
That was
Wales
a really good question.
example, and again, there were parts of England
They can't
as well.
answer it.
That was a publicly driven investment programme with public funds. That was a public policy decision by the UK government to look into those areas. I have to admit, Scotland's coverage was very, it was down to 40%. Up to that, you've got large swathes uninhabited areas in that country. Again, Wales has unique issues in terms of its valleys, and you know, you have unique issues as well. You know, a coastal area, rural area as well. So I think those discussions are very much, again, that public policy driven side of things, and that's where, you know, I think, again, looking in terms of your role and working with, you know, the district and the county and beyond, and your parliamentarians, is having that public policy discussion about where public investment should go.
Councillor Willington. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to follow up on Councillor Housden's question about capacity, if I may. We've just got through our local plan, so we have a new local plan. We have within that a number of areas that are going to potentially face quite significant new developments. I'm thinking Fakenham and North Walsham in particular. We've got areas like Scotto, which incidentally is an hotspot, and other areas where we're looking for economic growth.
True.
When you're looking, and you've talked about your 2030
I don't know
plans,
who's speaking.
by 2030 plans. When
I don't
you're
know why they've
looking,
still got this
how
up on
much
screen.
account do you take of those local new potential capacity issues? Because, you know, obviously putting large numbers of houses into towns, etc., is going to impact on capacity, even if coverage is there. And I just wondered how much that is sort of proactively looked at as part of, it's obviously your investment plans, but if there's sort of a more strategic approach to that.
I mean, there's a couple of responses to that I think worth mentioning. One is, you know,
Right.
the operators and the tower companies that are equally building out that passive infrastructure for them are looking at all plans and what's going on. There is a second point to that about how we are notified about developments. At the moment, there is no notification protocol to operators on development. So if a new town goes up with 50,000, whatever, we don't get sight of that. We are having, again, as part of the current government's
That's ridiculous.
both the national planning framework and permitted development rights. Yeah, we are looking at how that notification can happen better. You know, we believe that through the planning process, developers should
See, it's
have
no different for the fire service as well.
a commitment to look at and understand.
Surprised me with the police. They don't get notified of these new
See if
builds.
that development will impact, and therefore does that need a discussion with us. We think that's the best way of doing it. I think, just to be clear, the idea that just putting in place,
Crazy.
let's say, a plinth
Crazy.
mast in it isn't necessarily the right solution. We may have existing infrastructure in that area already, so it's not necessarily helpful. Sometimes it might be, but again, it's opening that discussion up. So it's very much as part of the National Planning Policy Framework and the PDR, we are putting forward suggestions to government about mandatory notification to us. Equally, there's a role for council in that, we believe, because, you know, has that developer taken this into account? I think we're moving into a period now where developers, you know, if you're building.
Right, advert.
Hello there.
What do you reckon?
Right.
Head and shoulders.
Head and shoulders? Didn't know you had dandruff.
I don't.
Head and Shoulders helps wash away dandruff and oil, and used regularly prevents it coming back. Head and Shoulders, dermatologically tested to use every wash.
I will, once I get to monetization stage and earning peanuts from this, I will get a subscription, and I will get rid of the adverts. So I can actually listen to things like this without the interruption. Here we go.
It's not really going to be that helpful if they're not both connected via fixed or mobile. You know, your investment portfolio is not going to be it's not going to be great if they're not connected. You know, it adds now, and I think developers are moving towards this and taking a different view of they need that connectivity as well. So we're trying to sort of propose how that happens. As I say, it's often not necessarily just being, you know, how we engage with developers. It's more about how we're notified of developments that happen. So, and I think just equally, just one thing worth understanding is we're not like fixed networks. We don't need to necessarily be instantly connected into that area by physical pipes and ducts and the like. You know, we may have existing infrastructure in that area that can cover that. development. But again,
Really?
that discussion can give us an idea of when that demand will be increasing and will impact on our networks that we will need to upgrade and put in. But it would be helpful, I think in local development plans of having more understanding and view of mobile within those development plans. I think we did a piece of research, and I admit it's a while back now, but we looked at where is mobile mentioned in local development plans, and I think it was nearly 5% across the whole country. Digital infrastructure often is focused on fixed, and while that is great, we would like to see more parity with mobile and bringing that into the discussion and the debate as well.
I just follow that up. Thank you. That's very helpful. So if I've read you right, there's sort of two components going on in that. There's sort of the public policy side of it with the national planning framework, which we can only influence to a certain degree. But within our own planning department, we could possibly, and I've got the portfolio holder next to me, might punch me in a minute. If when we're looking at this, if we can open a conduit between yourselves that makes that part of that discussion when we're in those early stages of pre-application, I don't know whether that's possible or whether that would be helpful even. So I'll be quiet now, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I think, having wording that relates to digital infrastructure in local development plans is helpful. And it's one of the reasons why we are focusing on the national planning policy framework, to have the wording in there strengthened, that local plans obviously take that, they look to the NPPF. So if the wording there is stronger, hopefully it will. And part of the reason for that is equally to give planners and officials such as yourselves and councillors the armoury behind you to push for the promotion of this infrastructure as well. So we're hopefully working in step here to ensure that NPPF is updated and understands how this infrastructure sits within all national infrastructure, because I think it is, and what I'm hearing here is backing this up. This is critical national infrastructure, yet at the moment we're very much built on a case-by-case singular planning, singular case-by-case in the planning sector. We're not like other major infrastructures, which is more the planning inspectorate or national.
3 hours.
We are considered by one application each time, and it's how does that be?
Councillor Brown.
Yes, just briefly, Madam Chair. I mean, currently the new NPPF is out to consultation, isn't it? I presume that you've made representations to government through that consultation, and you're hoping to have something included in the new NPPF by sort of the end of spring or later this year. And just a quick plug, Madam Chairman, we've got a planning training session online tomorrow, which covers aspects of the NPPF, and this might be tomorrow might be an opportunity to take that up by members with our planning department. Thank you very much.
If I can just say, yes, we are responding to the NPPF and we're actively doing that as we speak.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hankins.
Thank you. In your role, do I understand that you're coordinating between the various network providers?
My role is to represent the 3 main mobile network operators.
Is there any scope for coordination in terms of, for instance, in some areas, Vodafone or EE are better than others, etc.? Is there any scope? We're dealing basically with the end of the distribution curve, aren't we? We're dealing with the tail, where there's going to be in business perspective.
I hope you've got a good cup of tea or cup of coffee while you're watching this.
The peak of the curve. So
I've made my own tea today.
Scope to get together and say, look, you're better in this area. You can sort this bit out. We're better in this area. In other words, to provide some kind of coordination. Admittedly, it's competitive. I understand it's competitive, but we're not
shareholders
enormously.
Got so far to go. We have, haven't we? We've got so far to go. Where is this advert? See, everything is going online. So we need the
Yeah, so
service.
is there any scope for that? And
Not
can
too
you
worried
see?
about it. We
On that
need
one, I
these
think
masts if that's the way forward we're going.
we are a competitive industry. They compete against each other, and they compete against each other in multiple ways. One of them is, the wider coverage, or
So what? The money's not
technologies they
money's not
provide,
there
or
in North Norfolk
the
for you to
benefits
be
or
more
additional
competitive.
add-ons they give to contracts or whatever. So that is the way the industry is set up. I think the fundamental benefit of that is they are, very much advancing technology at pace. But on
In
consolidation,
towns?
I go back to
No.
2
In
points here.
cities?
One, we
Yes.
have just had a major consolidation of the industry. You mentioned Vodafone; they are now merged with Three. We now have 3 MNOs that essentially in the UK. And on the point of that sharing infrastructure, I go back to the myth that's often put forward. They do share, and that is not stopping. So the vast majority of the network is shared, but equally, it is a competitive market, and in some of the metrics that we're talking about, that's what they compete on.
Okay. Thank you very much. So have we got, thank you very much indeed. You've been absolutely stellar for
Thank you.
answering so many questions without a break. So thank you very much indeed. On a cup of Nescafe. Plug that out there.
Very good.
You've done very well indeed. Adam, have we got some recommendations here, such as working in dialogue with UK Power Network? Sorry, I do beg the pardon.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
sorry. I know you've answered quite enough questions already, but just wondering, I know you wouldn't have the figures, probably wouldn't have the figures here today, but it would be really good to get an overall picture of a percentage of how much the money is invested as a total in North Norfolk, compared with everywhere else in the country.
Good question.
Wondering if that might be something to follow on
I
from
don't
me.
have access to that information. That will be
Okay.
individually the operators. Sorry.
So you're there
I'm
for the
sorry.
3 operators, but you don't
Just
have
this
that
question I have that hasn't been raised today. Having read news reports, probably the last 6 months, there's reports that network providers are linking with Starlink. I just wondered, what impact will that have if they do link? Because apparently they'll use satellites. I don't know how many, but will that have an impact on rural areas and not spots?
I don't have access to that information.
It is example, but again, I think this is where understanding something is not necessarily a silver bullet. Satellite technology is very much in its infancy at the moment. It's very much about, I think, even with the phones that can do it.
Likes a
it's
silver
about
bullet
simple
analysis, doesn't
text
it?
capability and small data. That is looking to improve. I think both O2 and Vodafone and EE, all of them are working and developing relationships or actively pushing things in terms of satellite connectivity. And there are trials happening this year about direct-to-device 5G. However, what I would say is there's nothing yet still matches the capacity and latency and speed that you can get from an on-the-ground infrastructure. But in rural areas, it is part of the solution. It is providing that additional coverage in those areas, which are extremely difficult or to build out infrastructure. But again, it is early where we are and physical infrastructure there. And I think this is part of just a wider consideration is sometimes it's worth considering being more technology agnostic. There are technologies that can provide solutions. It's not necessarily always one technology. Equally, we want to provide the best networks across the whole country, but that is one reason why equally satellite is being considered and trialed on that point.
Okay.
Right. On that note, we're going to have a quick pause. We are going to go over to a music video because I need to get up and walk about because of my back. So I am going to say have a quick stretch if you haven't already. Maybe have even a little dance. But I do like this video. Enjoy.
When it came time to take things to the next level, I knew that I had to make a website, and Wix.
Welcome to the Tesco kitchen.
There's me talking to myself, look, and I've not even sorted out the screen or anything. Oh dear. Anyway, that was Bruno Mars. So let's continue, shall we? Oh, wrong button.
So
There we go.
wondering if you have any recommendations to make that there was a suggestion that was a dialogue between UK Power Network, BT and Mobile UK, and that was facilitated by the council. That was from Councillor Toy. Is that something people are minded?
Yeah, if you
Does
want
it need
to,
to be a recommendation, or can we have
I
it
think
on the
if you
lower
want to
level?
formalise it and put it to
Yeah,
the,
and it doesn't
ask
have to-
Cabinet to obviously sort of recognise that and formalise it perhaps for somebody like Councillor Toy to sort of lead on something like that, and we could sort of put it as a recommendation, or we could just have it as an action if you wanted to, more mindful to the committee to follow up. But obviously I've got Gareth's contact details, so I can obviously get those sorts of questions put to him, and obviously if he's obviously happy, as he said, to sort of feed those back to us. But if you wanted to formalise it more in terms of having maybe, like we were saying about the digital champion, to sort of lead on those issues, then we could could recommend that to Cabinet.
What the councillor's mind? Do you want to make it an action or recommendation? Action, okay. I thought we also had an action on working on consultations on pre-apps. I thought that was something that was raised that would be, Councillor Brown's not listening. We were okay. We were proposing an action to aid you in your quest that infrastructure is considered at the pre-application stage or at the local planning stage, because you're absolutely right. We do. I think it's in some of our policies in there that everyone's going to be brilliantly connected, but we don't actually give you the chance to do that work. So that would be an action. I mean, Councillor's happy if we word it afterwards rather than in the meeting. Would you be happy with that? I was minded to suggest that we wrote to the Minister about rural roaming, because I thought it was a really good idea until today. And because there's a bill going through Parliament at the moment, I think, supporting rural roaming. And my initial thought was perhaps we should write in support of that. And that probably would be a recommendation, but I don't.
But it seems it doesn't work.
Supporting further investment in the shared rural network in our area instead or as well. What do councillors think?
Be interesting to have any kind of information of any investment actually here for the shared rural network. I can see why they don't want rural roaming. I've been in business myself. It's fairly obvious why. But at the moment, all of the information seems to point that it's Scotland, it's Wales, it's not here, which is receiving much of the shared rural network funding, is it really? So I don't think it would hurt to still write.
Okay, so do we need, thank you, members. Councillor Toy, did you have?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. Just in hopefully to assist you in your action or recommendation that you decide. I'm obviously more than happy to pick up on the items here. I would be keen that we actually keep it in the public domain as well, so that the public are aware of the work that we're doing to try and to get this established. So
absolutely,
whether reports back to the council or whatever, I just would like to make sure that we achieve that.
Can we get rid of that screen now?
So
are you ever going to get rid of that screen?
So help me with the wording here then. The recommendation is to inquire what the investment is in the shared. Do we have anything? Are we not minded to support it based on the information that we've been given today? So does that need to be a recommendation, or can that be an action?
I would say
Action.
probably again we could be an action really. I think as Councillor Gray sort of said, we're just trying to get that information back, obviously, and obviously Gareth's happy to sort of liaise with us on that behalf by the sounds of it. So obviously if you wanted to, as you were saying, if the committee were minded to perhaps write to the Ministry for the rural roaming to support that, and obviously we need to definitely obviously vote on that if we were to communicate with them as a a letter. But I don't know if the committee were obviously minded to do that.
What do members think about that now?
Yeah, what were the figures on the investment? You did quote them to me a little while ago, and I didn't write them down actually. On the rural roaming, you said Scotland and Wales. You quoted some figures. 500,000 from, was it $1 billion?
Microphone. Turn your microphone on. I know there was 11 billion.
Right. Thank you. So
Right.
be worth us picking up on that certainly.
Okay, so that will be an action that we can word afterwards. The recommendations, are you minded to write to the Minister about rural roaming now, or have we changed our minds?
I don't think that it will hurt to still write to the minister.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd support that we still do it.
okay. So do we need to craft that wording now then?
I think obviously you perhaps had that word in there, Chair, that you were going to put to the committee.
I was going to say, is the committee minded
Yeah.
to write to the Minister asking for rural roaming and supporting the access to telecommunications network bill currently going through Parliament? Are you happy with that wording? Yep.
And then we just have to vote
We need to-
obviously from the committee that we're happy to do that.
Is everyone happy to take that? Happily? Okay, thanks. Okay.
So he said roaming doesn't
do both.
work.
We'll support both the shared rural network and rural roaming.
Rural
So,
roaming does
obvious.
not work.
Anyone,
He just said
so
that.
thank you very much indeed. We have covered a lot of ground actually, and I think we have got some positive actions that we can take away to work together. And we've got a much better understanding of rural connectivity, and hopefully we can feed that back to our constituents, and that will be very productive. And thank you very much indeed. Given the commercial sensitivity of the situation, we've learnt a lot. So, and thank you very much indeed for being barrage of questions hurled at you. If you can hurl a barrage, I'm not sure that's quite correct terminology, but thank you very much indeed for coming. And now we have a conduit for further questions. That's very, very useful for us. Okay, is everyone? Thank you very much indeed, and thank you very much for enduring a 9-hour train ride coming up here.
9-hour train ride for
So
that.
come back again and hopefully get the fish and chips.
9
Thank you very much
hour.
indeed. Okay,
Did
should
I
we take a
just-
break now? Before we,
9-hour
discuss the
train
budget?
ride
So let's
for
come
that.
back at indeed for coming, and now we have a conduit network and rural roaming. So obvious. Anyone? So thank you very much indeed. We have covered a lot of ground actually, and I think we have got some positive actions that we can take away.
I don't think I've gone back far
to
enough.
work together. And we've got a much better understanding of rural connectivity, and hopefully we can feed that back to our constituents, and that will be very productive.
What are you going to feed back?
Thank you very much indeed. Given the commercial sensitivity of the situation, we've learnt a lot. So, and thank you very much indeed for being barrage of questions hurled at you. If you can hurl a barrage, I'm not sure that's quite
Maybe I've gone back too
correct,
far.
Terminology, but thank you very much indeed for coming. And now we have a conduit for further questions. That's very, very useful for us. Okay, is everyone? Thank you very much indeed, and thank you very much for enduring a 9-hour train ride coming up here.
9-hour train
Missing
ride
your fish and chips when you got here, so come back again and
with
hopefully
more
get the
answers.
chips. So thank you very much indeed. Okay,
Come
should we
back
take a
with
break
more
now before
answers.
we discuss the budget. So let's come back at 25 past. It's a bit difficult. 25.
Vintage new electronics category means
Okay, so
you
they are
can
now
earn
going to
again.
go. They're now going to go on a break. But what we can do, because we are not watching it live, is we can fast forward once the advert finishes. Come on, advert. What's this one? Oh, my word. Looks like a film. Right. So we are going to fast forward to this point. Let's go. Okay.
Welcome back, everybody. We just had a little alteration to that last recommendation that we made. In fact, we've changed it from being a recommendation from an.
Not many there, is they?
Not correct.
Or is they?
Correct.
We did have it as an action anyway, really, Chair. But obviously we were thinking we needed to make a recommendation, but I think we've just minded it.
Yeah.
Been mindful to keep it as an action, but add.
But we
to
have
it
a
a bit
second part to it, if that's all right. What we're proposing is to write to the digital minister requesting information as to their intention regarding further investment in rural mobile networks, because in case there's an opportunity to get the shared rural network moved into North Norfolk. How does everyone think about that? So it's a part 2. Okay.
That sounds like a reasonable amendment.
Okay, what do you propose? Okay, in North Norfolk. Okay, in North Norfolk. So write to the digital minister requesting information as to their intention regarding further investment in rural mobile networks in North Norfolk. Any other changes? Okay, do we need to vote on that one? Do we need to vote on that? Is everyone in favour? That? Okay, so we'll add that. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we go on to the standard agenda. Do we have any public questions?
No public questions, Chair.
No? Minutes.
No public questions.
Minutes. Does everyone think they're correct, actually? Or in any other way? Is everyone happy to? Do I need to go through them page by page? Does anyone like to propose the minutes as correct? Anyone like to second the minutes as correct? Okay, would everyone like to vote on the minutes? Okay.
So this is the minutes from the meeting before.
Business?
No items, Chair.
No. Do we have any petitions from members of the public?
No petitions, Chair.
Do we have any consideration, any matters referred to us?
No, no, Chair.
No. Okay. We don't have any responses to consider in item 10.
Nothing to respond to in that sense, Chair. No responses.
Okay, so now we get on to the highlight of the second part, the draft revenue budget. And we're being asked to give feedback to Cabinet on Monday, and we squeezed this in at special request. And we will be seeing it again and again. But this is your first chance to make some comments and some helpful feedback to Cabinet. And is there any introduction needed? If so, could it be brief?
I'll be as brief as I possibly can be. So the good news is that we've achieved a balanced budget, which under the circumstance in previous years, I think is something to be celebrated, but with thanks to the committee with the work that we have done. In the 24-25 budget, we did pause the Sustainable Communities Fund, and I affirmed that it was only a pause, and we had every intention of when it was possible to bring it back. What we are doing is that we are slightly reinventing it. And as you can see in 3.13, and this is to a local members fund, and the vision for this is that local members can apply for grants on behalf of their communities. In with that, I just want to add some additional information there, because obviously there's not a lot of detail there and we can't put the detail in until we've agreed to do it. But we would suggest that there'd be a cross-party working group to agree the purpose and governance around the grants awards, and that the control would be efficiently exercised through a 4-person panel of 2 members, a legal officer and a finance officer. I'm sorry, Christopher, I always do this. I'm terribly sorry. So you caught the bit about the local member fund. Okay, so the Sustainable Communities Fund we're going to reinvent. We had paused it, and it was a affirmation from me that I would only pause it, and we're going to reinvent that as a local member fund, which will be on application from local members. And we're suggesting a cross-party working group to agree the purpose and governance around the grant awards, and the control would be exercised through a 4-person panel of 2 members, a legal officer and a finance officer, to meet monthly to oversee the proposed awards. So there is the governance in that. The finer detail will obviously be agreed once the cross-party working group has met. And we haven't got the detail because it would be improper to agree all the detail before we've agreed to go ahead with it at full council. In previous years, obviously this committee has worked with me to monitor the budget, and I think we've been a fantastic grouping to do so. And as you can see in this budget, the work has paid off. In the coming year's budget, you'll notice that we don't have a list of savings to consider, and that doesn't mean that we're moving away from efficiency. It simply acknowledges the shift within this council that efficiency is woven into every decision we take, and not just something that happens once a year when we set the budget. So that's a huge shift, I think, that we will notice.
Extensions for abundant hair? Think again. New Pantene Grow.
Wowzers. Okay, what we got here? It's a Pantene, whatever it's called. Yeah, Pantene. And we've got Screwfix again. I'm just trying to find their documents on their Norfolk District Council webpage. And I'm not having any luck at the moment, which is slightly bonkers. Let's carry on.
That we're receiving, and we found ourselves in the position that due to shrewd budget management, we have been rewarded with a core spending power reduction that sits at 95%, seeing projected government funding reduction of 93% per person in North Norfolk, and you will see that that's over the coming years, and that's in 2.1. 2.5 further explains what the unfair funding review has changed for North Norfolk. From table 12 on page 30, you can see how the funding has actually changed. Oh, you haven't got page numbers? If you look in the agenda pack, okay, I'm going on the online agenda pack.
Yeah.
So it's
I'm looking for the agenda pack.
12, which details that for you. I'll pause while committee members find the table. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Crazy.
Yeah. Are we all there? Yes.
Problem is when you go on the Norfolk District Council website, it brings you up. I'll just quickly show you. There we are. It brings you up to the to this, and trying to find what I'm looking for isn't quite as straightforward as you think. I mean, agenda packs, no. Public meetings under P, no. So report, let's try apply. Jesus Christ, look at the amount. Wow. Norfolk County Council website is slightly easier than this one. So public meetings, public full council meetings, filming requests. I have no idea what that is. Look at that, look, right at the bottom. Right at the bottom. Ah! That's why I was having issues. Okay, let's just quickly look for... Let's start with this one. Because we are looking for the agenda pack. The agenda pack should be... Wowzers. What do you reckon? Answers, please. Right, let's choose. Oh, look, the North Walsham High Street Heritage Action Zone Working Party. North Norfolk Youth Council. Quality of Life. Town and Parish Engagement Forum. That's quite an interesting one. I'm going to have to click on that. I'm going to have to quickly click on it now, to be honest with you, because 10 a.m. That's it. Okay, let's just go back one. Browse meetings. I want the agenda pack. Aha! And the one we are looking for was from a couple of days ago, and it's not on there. I went to council before, didn't I? Let's check the cabinet. Right. It wouldn't have been that one. It was, what was the date of this? Let's find out when the date was. Which should be 6 days ago. 6 days ago. 6 days ago. So it wasn't the 9th, was it? Really not having much luck here at all. Isn't really working, is it?
That will tell you exactly how the funding has changed. We've got a specific challenge here in North Norfolk, as other Norfolk councils will be facing. We have to budget as if the council is continuing, which you will see when you see the medium-term financial strategy. But also you will note that we have created a reserve for local government reorganisation, because there will be some costs which will come from that, and the purpose of the reserve is to ensure that everybody's got input as to how that money's spent, and that we're very aware of where the money's going there as well. In 3.12, which on the digital pack is page 28, you will see that reserve. And whilst it is a government instructed change, they're not giving us any extra money to do so. Not surprised at all, Councillor Hankin. And as I've talked about before, aside from the temporary accommodation pressures, which you will see in the capital bids, which we are dealing with as a council, which was the Second Homes Council tax introduction, you will also note that I've spoken about previously the additional pressure in the coming years with the cost of food waste collections. And again, whilst this is a government instruction and statutory responsibility, we don't see an additional grant for new burdens funding to enact this. The only other point that I wanted to make is where we saw last year that our share of the overall council tax dropped to 7.4%, whereas it had previously been 8%, with town and parish councils taking 3.6%, the police and crime commissioner taking 14.1%, and the county council taking 74.9% of the council tax share. Obviously, until everybody set their budgets, we won't know how that adjustment is going to look, and whether or not we will still see a 7.4% share of the overall council tax bill.
Thank you very much indeed. That was very comprehensive, despite being very brief. Good, just councillors have questions. Councillor Hankins.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 2 points. Can I ask why this review has been brought forward to this meeting? There was an established programme that detailed the fact that this was going to be reviewed in February. So in bringing it forward, 2 questions. In bringing it forward, does that mean that the February meeting will not be necessary? Secondly, what's the reason?
Okay, can I answer? This was requested by the chief executive, by the portfolio holder, that we saw it now, was requested by various officers and portfolio holders. And the reason we're seeing it now is also due to the fact that we didn't see it in December because there were budget issues, because the information was late. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it was scheduled to come in December. And we
There's a few things running late, isn't there?
Squeezed it in because we normally do a pre-scrutiny. And this was the only opportunity we had to do pre-scrutiny because the reports were late, were factors not within our control. And we agreed at the request of the CEO and the portfolio holder to discuss it today. So that's my understanding, but the portfolio holder will explain more.
I don't think that's quite the way that it came towards the end. My preference is always for pre-scrutiny. I prefer getting everybody's input before it goes to cabinet, because if there are any adjustments that need to be made, or if there's any input that the scrutiny committee has got, I'd rather we're able to make those before it goes to cabinet and before it goes to full council.
When little time calls for big power, reach for
And we got
Fairy
Anne.
Power with Fairy's strongest grease cutting formula. In cooler water, it cleans 5 times.
Got to be fairy, hasn't it? Fairy liquid. Fairy liquid. We should, yeah, fairy liquid. There you go. Ah, we've got another Head and Shoulders.
Didn't know you had dandruff.
I don't. Wowzers. Well, like I say, in time. Although I have come across some really weird adverts recently.
I would like to thank officers primarily.
About that another
for
day
turning
when
the
they come
papers
up.
around at
Really
such
weird adverts.
short notice. It was not as fluid, I think, as bringing it to pre-scrutiny as we would normally have, which is why you received some papers that include commercially sensitive information, and then a re-release of the papers that are the public papers that you have got.
Yeah, that is removed for the public.
Working in
Keeping it all
future years, this
secret.
isn't the way that anybody would prefer it to go. But I was possibly caught a little unaware because the forward work programme didn't suggest bringing it forward for pre-scrutiny, but I'm also grateful to have pre-scrutiny, but I'm not sure how the committee workings went behind that.
Thank you. And my second question?
Yeah. Back on.
The second question is, in reviewing it today,
Yes.
does that preempt the necessity to review it again in February?
No.
So will we have a February meeting as well?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you'll have the February meeting, but not be scrutinised again.
Okay. Councillor Joy, did you want to make?
Yeah, so just to reinforce what Councillor Shires said, as a a cabinet member, the more eyes that we've had on it before we make decisions in cabinet. So having that pre-scrutiny is really helpful to us to have a well-informed discussion to make sure that we're producing a budget that's acceptable. Thank you.
And by my remarks, I in no way wanted to slight the finance team, because I think they did a brilliant job in turning things around. Everything was late and the timing of meetings was such. This is why it's been rather a scramble, but they've done a fantastic job. So thank you very much indeed. Okay.
Even though that wasn't due till next month.
Comments about the content. Councillor Cushing.
Well, really with questions, as you one would expect anyway. So I take Councillor Hankins' point, but I have to say, I've only had to look at this online. I have to say, I tend to absorb better when I can sort of flick papers around, so I can't say I've got my mind fully around it. But I do have one or two questions. The first one, if I may, Councillor Shires, is I take your point about the 95% funding and saying actually we've done it badly. But when I look on table 1, I see if you look at the base budget for next year and comparing with this current financial year, it's increased by £2 million. So on that basis, it looks like we haven't done that badly after all. So any comments on that? Or am I missing? So I don't think I'm missing something there, but anyway, that's what the figures are telling me anyway.
Go on.
Look on net services of costs, it's gone up from 22.3 to 24.5, and total income government grant has gone up from 23.5 million to 25.4 million.
Okay, fantastic. So what we can now talk about is obviously that the 95% means that that has to include putting the council tax up. So whereas previously we have always tried where possible to not have to do that, the 95% includes putting council tax up. So you will see that in there, there's an assumption about the council tax going up. You'll see that the business rates has dropped. So the government are taking a larger share of the business rates.
How much have they dropped?
Where we are. So where they would have normally given us a new homes bonus or a
new homes
different
bonus
type of funding guarantee, or when we had the NHS, the National Insurance compensation money, they're not giving us that anymore. So they have wrapped everything in there.
I mean, they're not giving it to you anymore.
Would get specific grants for
We're
specific
still paying
things.
it, though, aren't
It's all lumped in, as in business for the usual stuff is all lumped in there. But what you're seeing there, obviously, as well, is the extended responsibility grants as well. So there's lots of different aspects to it. So whereas it might feel that we're not receiving less, we're receiving less compared to a lot of places across the country. So Shire districts in particular are being targeted. It's been moved more to the metropolitan boroughs as well, and those with adult social care responsibility. So it's not in isolation. It's if you look at the whole picture, there are, I want to say 68 councils who got 95%. Roughly about 68 councils. So we are part of a very small cohort where our funding is lower than all the other councils across the country.
Yeah, including our network coverage as well, eh?
Councillor Hankins.
Why are we getting less money?
The Planning Policy and Built Heritage Committee or Working Party were faced with a request to update the planning standards and codes. There was a consideration that this would be quite expensive. A figure of £50,000 was mentioned in order to carry out the necessary research into what needs to be done or otherwise. There's no provision in this, presumably, for that requirement.
That's not quite accurate. There is a planning reserve. There is a planning reserve. So if you look on the reserves section, it would come out of that. That's what the planning reserve is for.
Put that out to me, please.
Let me find, I don't know what pages your papers have, but you should have a reserve statement at the back.
Is that an appendix?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be in one of your appendix.
If only I
let me
could
just locate
find
it
this.
on my digital pack. I know there's some slight disparity here.
Oh, wow. Herbal essences. Oh,
I'm actually just trying to find the agenda pack for what they are talking about, and I'm still struggling. Still struggling. Although we do have some nice adverts. Oh, guess this one. Okay. while they are trying to look for it, I'm back on the North Norfolk District Council.
So we're just trying to get you, there's an
typed in
appendix
agenda packs.
letter that goes with it, but obviously our pages are different to yours because we're on the digital pack.
Yeah.
Committee agenda packs, no results found.
So it's Appendix D.
I think that was included in the email that Adam sent out, but perhaps it's not in the printed version you've got today. This is purely the budget. It was in the original email last week.
If you could, please.
But it's going to be clarified in 1 second.
So you want the amount for that? Do you want to know how much that reserve
Yeah.
is? 325,000.
Sorry?
325,000. 325, yeah.
Good gracious.
Is that purely for what was that intended to cover? Because 325,000 is quite a lot of money.
So in part, that was for the local plan and the amount needed for the inspection of the plan within the next 2 years. So we have got some figures there that we're not completely fully aware of, but the whole budget was to include the whole amount,
Okay.
and we
So
believe
that was for the whole lot.
Yeah,
For the
so we-
preparation of the plan, etc.
yeah, so we
So
believe
this possible requirement is built into that figure.
yes, we believe that there will be money left in there to cover that.
Okay, could that be noted, please?
Yeah, note it.
Is that minuted? Yeah. Okay, I'll do 1 minute that.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Housden?
Could you just explain table 14, the drop off in the capital programme and meeting our housing needs? Just the rationale, really, or have I missed something?
I cannot find the
Capital
agenda packs
programme.
anywhere on this line. How annoying.
For 26, 27.
Sorry,
So-
by drop off, do you mean?
So we've got the budget for 25, 26 is 6 million, round figures. 26, 27 is 2.3. Meeting our housing needs.
Okay, so in the capital programme currently, under meeting our housing need, we have the disabled facilities grant, compulsory purchase of long-term empty properties, community housing fund, which is the grants to housing providers, council owned temporary accommodation, housing section 106 enabling, and loans to housing providers. That's currently in the capital programme.
Right.
The additional money is on top of
Okay.
that, and that's where we're it's detailed in the capital.
I just want to state that I cannot find any of the budgets. I've looked for agendas, meeting agenda packs, committee, public meetings. Can't find it. And this one that I've come across, which I actually got a bit hopeful for, only goes up to 2019. And I'm finding it quite frustrating. I'm hoping that you are following me on this. So yeah, the Norfolk District Council website is not a friendly one to use. It's crazy. I am still trying to find what I'm trying to find. Have you been able to hear the meeting as I've been doing this? That's the question. I don't know, but as you can see, I'm having issues. In the meantime, let's see if we can get back to the meeting and the discussion, and you can hear it.
They're not helping the matter. They're U-turning so much that unfortunately we've got businesses out there that don't have any trust at the moment, and they are looking at selling
I
or
am going to
standing
go.
still. So economic growth is not on the table.
I am going to go back a couple of
The
minutes.
additional money is on top of.
Just be on the safe
of
side, just in
that,
case
and
we did
that's
miss
where
it.
it's detailed in the capital bids.
Fine, okay, thank you.
Councillor Bayes.
Yeah, mine's around the business rates, and obviously with what's happening in the area I belong in, or was in, is the hospitality sector impacting on the significant increases. And there is clearly significant increases. I think some of my people I've spoken to, business rates going from 30,000 up to 78, 16,000 on our high street up to 48. Is there a risk of potential business closures impacting on?
And this is impacting some businesses in North Walsham as well. So
That's
I've
a really
been
good
hearing.
question, and I think that's something that
They're
the
telling me.
government really need to look at. I've heard the opposite, where the valuations are bringing the business rates down overall as well. So we've got some kind
Where?
of wonderful
What businesses?
cycle there overall.
Really?
The thing that we need to make sure that we go out into our communities and talk about is the reliefs that are available. So I think as part of when we've set the budget and the direction, that we need to make sure that through our economic growth team, that they're making sure the information is getting out to businesses, because it would be really, really dreadful to see any of our high streets struggle even further. Than
They are, Lucy.
And I think people are very, very worried, especially where we have businesses that are sole trader businesses, because that's the difference between being able to afford to open the doors and having to close and put their family's livelihoods at risk.
Yeah, I'd just like to come back on that. I agree that that is really important, because I think businesses are making decisions now, really worried, anxious about what is going to happen. And I think that's got to be a proactive, I suppose, interest in all our, we can't excuse what the government is doing at the moment, but that's certainly not helping the matter. They're U-turning so much that unfortunately we've got businesses out there that don't have any trust at the moment, and they are looking at selling or standing still. So economic growth is not on the table, and they're looking at getting out actually, rather than staying in their businesses at the moment. That really concerns me, because if you look at hospitality places within North Norfolk, it is considerably high. This is an area of really, which brings in a lot of money for us.
Yeah.
Thank you anyway, Lucy.
Yeah, absolutely. So the business rates paper goes to Cabinet on Monday. So we will be discussing it there, and the support that's available and what's changed for people. So hopefully off the back of that, we'll put some further information out to make sure that businesses are aware of the support that is there, not only through the business rates relief, but other grants and things that are available.
Really?
Brown.
Thank you, Madam
The
Chairman.
grants that you have to
I'm
pay up
speak as an
before the
observer.
money
Just to
gets
pick
paid
up on
back to these
what
businesses.
Councillor Shires
That's all
said
granting
about
as well.
the reserve for planning the 325,000, which is quite right about the local plan. When the local plan was passed, the inspector advised that we would need to start by June this year looking at a new local plan. So that £325,000, a substantial proportion of that will be earmarked for the next new local plan starting in June. So the options were £50,000 for a basic review of design guides, up to 160 if we, really pushed the boat out and completely rewrote it. So what we're looking at is information coming back to the working party to tweak our existing design guide that was produced back in 2008 and is getting a bit long in the tooth like the previous local plan was. But it might just help members to know that that 325 isn't, it isn't winning the lottery, as it were, when it comes to the design guide issue.
Mr. Cushing?
Before I start, I just like to reiterate the point that Councillor Bayes has made. Being in the Fakenham area alone, we've had 2 restaurants closed, the Sculthorpe Aviator and the Olive Tree at Little Snoring. That's appalling. That's just the immediate impacts that are having on local business. So my heart goes out to them. It must be a hell of a job to try and run a successful business under the climate that this government is generating. I'd like to move on, if I may, Councillor Shires, to second homes council tax premium.
When the sofa's calling, but the floor looks appalling, reach for new Flash.
It's just funny how they layer the monies up. I find that extraordinary. I do. I really do. In the meanwhile, I have no idea what this advert is. Online stuff. Crazy.
In the coming year, have the County Council agreed the same terms as we've currently had? And secondly, where might I find the second homes council tax premium? What estimates do we have for next year, and where might it be spent, please?
Officer McCallum will give the detail on where we are with the negotiation. But the intention for our share is as it was before. So where we will take some out of our reserve this year. Remember the second homes council tax reserve we created to top up any overspill for temporary accommodation costs. We will take out this year and will replenish to the same level with our share of the council tax this year. But and obviously you'll see in the budget where we've got the meeting the housing need, we have got an intention to invest again in temporary accommodation, but I will just defer to Officer McCallum just to give an update on where we are with the negotiation.
Yes, thank you. We've been actively negotiating with the County Council to carry forward on the same basis as 25-26. So of the second homes premium that the county receives that we've collected this year, they give back to us 25% of what they've got. That was initially forecast to be 1.3 million. Our current expectations is it'll be closer to 1.6 million, which we're reinvesting in temporary accommodation. We've asked for the same basis next year. That figure could go up or down. If everybody paid the same second homes, that figure will go up. However, the changes in the rateable value might encourage second homeowners to register their properties as businesses and get small business rates relief. So we can't guarantee we'll get that. But in terms of where we are with the discussions, Councillor Adams is in regular contact with Councillor Jameson at County to agree the same funding formula. So we haven't had that agreement yet, but we intend to. And our understanding is that the 2 other councils, districts that collect second homes have secured their rebate on a similar basis as this year.
So just to add to that, where the reason the figure is higher is because, as I said, when we were doing the original announcement, is that we'd been quite conservative, small c, on the amount of second homes council tax we thought we would be successful in collecting. Again, we know that the revenues team here are nationally recognised for their work, so they've achieved an above collection beyond where we thought we were going to get, which is beneficial for our residents because it gets reinvested back in.
Councillor Toy, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. It's not directly to the budget, but because it's been raised by people, it's just about the business of pubs and hospitality. Just to give, obviously, there's a limit we can do budgetary wise. I have little to spend. Well, I've already engaged with my counterpart at county. I'm in discussions with our MP who was visiting hospitality industries last week, and we are working on what we can do. And actually, this time tomorrow, I will actually be in a pub talking to them. So we are working on it, and we're doing what we can. Budgetary wise, though, there is little control we hope have over that. But economic development are aware and doing all that we can to find solutions. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
It's a hardship post, Councillor Dwight.
Yeah.
Councillor Baines, did you want to come back in? I see you.
Just really to follow up on my fellow councillor, Christopher, couple of things there. How many homes have actually been sold? Because there's this second homes, which I think a lot of people will be determined that probably this last year, looking at that, what they're having to pay for that second home, they might actually be offloading their property. And the second point to that is how many of those homes, because I think there's 12 months grace if they are intending to sell that home. Is that right? Am I right in saying that? So is there a 12 months grace where they don't have to pay that second homes tax if they are putting their house up for sale and intend to sell it?
So where we had heard from our second homes community that there would be a forced mass resale, we haven't seen that. In fact, there was a little drop from what I remember. We've seen some increases, we've seen some drops again, and we've got a plateau. So we've not seen a huge change overall, which shows that those people who have got a second home here really are invested in our communities, which is what we had heard and what we recognise and we hope for. When we'd made the estimate,
so everything you need is on here. Your orders appear here, and with a click and collect,
we would be able to collect in, we'd taken all those things such as people selling or moving over to small business rates relief. We had taken
I
that
do
into
remember a lot of people
consideration,
saying that they would
and
sell their
in
homes,
fact, I believe that
and they
in
haven't.
Our underestimation, purposefully to make sure that we weren't catching ourselves out, we've actually been too conservative in that regard, and we've succeeded far greater collection rates than we had envisaged.
One more question regarding salaries. I noticed that I just want to know whether there's a salary increase that's been agreed, because it actually says here pay award is assumed to be at 3%, and reflected to inflation, which inflation, as we know, can change very much at the moment. I mean, it's up one moment, down the next. I think it's at 3.2, drop from 3.4.
Inflation annoys me.
But actually, is
Surprise
there a
there.
risk with that pay rise? Has it been agreed? Is there a risk that's been considered if that pay rise is needed to be increased or whatever? Sorry.
So we are not, as an organisation, fully in control of that, if that makes sense. So the NJC meet, and then the overall increase is negotiated from there. So I don't believe that we will hear the final figure for negotiation until September. So we've put in where we believe we're going to be. As always, when you set a budget now where you've got a known cost coming, potentially 9 months down the line, you can only estimate where you can. And like we did with the second homes council tax, we made an estimation based on the information we did have, and that's where the estimation comes from. If I was setting this in September, then I would have a definitive figure, but unfortunately that just isn't how local government operates, which is why we have to begin the budget setting process early and discuss it, and then we can't move from the budget. We can only monitor performance against it throughout the year.
I've been quite ignorant here, but why are pay rises awarded by the government in budget year rather than prior to budget year? So it's actually calculated more accurately. So I'm being ignorant, I think.
You're not at all. That makes sense.
We're a part of
Good
the
question, though.
NJC, which is a collective agreement. I think the vast majority of local authorities are part of that collective agreement. So there's a representatives that negotiate on our behalf, and we're bound to follow that. I think it's a well-established process. It's done in year when all the awards are known. and affordability. The trade unions have made their representations of what they'd like to see, which is much, much higher than inflation. And that's their job to do that, to represent their members. In terms of how do we meet a challenge, it's understood that all those councils that are part of NJC have already set their budgets for the year, and our negotiators have obviously armed with that information as they go into it. And they do ask an annual survey as to how we dealt with 3.2 rather than 3%, or what different councils have assumed. They ask us about our assumptions, so they gather that data before they go into the negotiations. And I believe our head of HR is submitting those answers this morning. So one of the obvious places is where we have vacancies or interim roles, then we use any savings we can generate from that to offset any growth in the cost. And ultimately, there are still sufficient reserves.
It's just juggling, isn't it?
And so to ensure that the budget
Constant
is
juggling.
balanced. But obviously that will go through committee at the relevant time, the use of reserves. So we are, although it's beyond our control, we feel that there's enough collective influence and mitigation in place that we can manage that risk.
I had a couple of questions. Why has the revenue support grant increased to over 6 million from 300,000 last year? That's table 1, line 19.
Just from 300,000
Am I
to
misunderstanding that?
Shit.
So that's the first table.
And again, I cannot access any of this
That's purely
online.
because of the losses across everything else. If you see
Oh, not that I
where
can
we've
find.
lost in the business rates, the new homes bonus,
Mm.
the
Advert!
When you have nausea, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea. At the first sign of discomfort,
Pepto. Thanks, Pepto. If you got the shits, that's what you need. Oh, what's this one?
Reach for with a new scrubbing strip to effortlessly zap.
I really don't get why they have to juggle these parts. The whole thing is just layered like an onion, isn't it? It really
national
is.
insurance compensation, they've just lumped it all into one big sum now. So whereas before we were told what each part was for, we are just given a lump sum currently. I'm as much as I would love to believe that central government would look at us with that lump sum and not then part way through the year decide that we've spent it on the wrong things. As much as I would like to trust that that's not going to happen, we have still got many weeks to go before, well, a few weeks before we set the budget. And as we know, when we set the budget last time, they then changed some of the rules, and they've changed rules in year. So we know as much as we know right now until the government tell us otherwise, which isn't exactly the way that any of us likes to be. And I'm hopeful that with the 3-year funding guarantee, that we will have the same consistency overall, and they won't change the rules again. But as always, we know what we know today.
Okay, thank you. Under premises cost variance, you've got 225,000 of work to council assets not in capital bids. I just wondered why that was.
So the way that capital works is if it's something new that we're doing, then it's capital. And if it's a repair to something that already exists, it's revenue. So that's where we are highlighting that here, whereas before we'd have had like a pot of money
Right.
that would have come out of. We're actually highlighting in there that it's very, very specific. So if we need to repair a roof somewhere and it's not a full change to it, or if we needed to do any work that isn't a completely new product, then the repairs come out of that money.
And it's not budgeted for then, otherwise it wouldn't be a variance.
It's budgeted for in the revenue budget before we would have created some kind of reserve. I can't remember what Don will give me the exact information
Right.
for it, but it's falling under the work that happens as a day-to-day rather than coming forward in pieces and then saying, well, this is coming from revenue and this is coming from capital.
But are you saying there's 225 more than you expected to spend, otherwise it wouldn't be variance? No, you're not.
No, I think it also reflects where we've put pressure on the repairs and maintenance budgets. So that bit of railing could last another year before repainting, and it's coming back now, and we're trying to make sure that all the council assets are handed over to the new unitary in the best possible state, because there's a considerable risk that a new unitary may deprioritise the North Norfolk public realm over other areas, especially if it's a single unitary.
Okay, lovely. In 3.7, you explain that the environmental services growth has increased quite considerably.
You guys, though, are going to be vying for your jobs again, though, aren't you?
yes.
Is that
Why
the
would these
county
things be
producer? Or is it the food
changed?
So that is part, I believe, of, is that the,
It's the food.
okay,
It's food.
so it's part of the,
Okay, so
If I could come in quickly, the 1.3-ish million that we put in there, we've got some grant that you're right, that you've recognised at EPR grant that's to do with packaging, and that's awarded on a year-by-year basis, so there's no guarantee of funding. The growth in the cost is mainly driven by the new burden of the domestic food waste service that we're bringing in, and in one of the very early versions of the papers that was issued on Tuesday, but we then retracted, it was very transparent in the public document that that's what we were providing for within our budget, but that amount has not been negotiated with Serco, our provider, yet.
Okay.
So that's the reason.
Do we get access to
What's
this
most
public
sensitive
document?
is if we told them how much money we budgeted, then they would they would cease negotiating in good faith.
Okay.
And it's
Okay.
about retaining value for money, not keeping secrets.
Okay, lovely. And you're putting 750,000 into a reserve for LGR. That could you just justify that?
are you asking me to justify local government reorganisation? Because I simply cannot.
Spending money on it, I'm asking you to.
I can't justify the spending of money on it from our local taxpayers either. It's a government initiative, but there will be some costs which the councils have to bear, and we are being prudent in ensuring that we have money.
You could save money on your energy, broadband and mobile bills and
Really? You see this, I get annoyed with things like this, typically, of how we keep getting told top down rather
Him
than
justify local government reorganisation, but
the
you
other
can
way.
add some more depth to that.
It seems a lot.
Somebody needs to justify it, but who?
Just to put it into context, Section 151's chief executives and leaders across the districts and the county meet regularly to try and preempt the Minded To decision in March. And we're looking at different ways of funding the cost of creating new unitary system, redesigning services, the HR burdens, the OT burdens of integrating systems. Those costs are not by any means certain. There are different cost envelopes depending on the model that you're using. There's different unitarizations have used different ways of sharing that cost burden. So in Sussex, it was 80-20. 80% of that cost was borne by the county, 20% by the districts. In North Yorkshire, it was 100% borne by county. It allowed the districts to focus on BAU and any projects that they needed to finish before the unitary was formed. And under the continuing authority model, all the assets and reserves of the predecessor councils will be absorbed
Okay.
by the new unitary. We haven't agreed a funding formula yet. This 750 compares with the other districts who are including in their proposed budgets between £500,000 and £1 million. So we're kind of midway in terms of that. One of the models that counties has proposed is they would fund half and the districts would share the other half. That would disadvantage North Norfolk based on population. It would disadvantage other small districts as well who have even greater liabilities than we do. As I said, that's not been agreed. What the principles that I'm promoting within those fora are that this costs that are allowable across Norfolk for LGR have to be incremental. So that these are additional costs. They're not BAU costs. They're not for existing staff who are now supernumerary because we're not building any new highways in Norfolk. And they can be devoted to LGR instead. It's incremental costs. So when officers are seconded to LGR programs, which we support, so that the North Norfolk stakeholders are well represented within those fora, and also to promote our officers and to ensure that they have careers ahead of them rather than being left out on the coast and ignored. That we have a budget to backfill the BAU, because it's very important that services continue to be delivered efficiently and effectively for our residents and businesses.
And yet no highways are being built.
I think there needs to be some argument where Officer McCallum has spoken about a 50-50 split. Where I highlighted before, we receive 7.4% of the council tax and the county gets 74.9% in the last financial year. 50-50 split doesn't seem fair overall, and we keep getting told by the county council that they deliver 85% of services. So again, a 50-50 split does not seem fair. So
but you are county
really
council as
officers
well,
set
so
an
why are you not
argument
fighting for it more?
fairness, overall, because without fairness, we're going to end up in a place where our residents grossly miss out completely. And I would look to the government to create some kind of framework for this, underpinned by fairness, but I'm not entirely sure that they have got their full eye on what's going on, or indeed the impact to residents, especially in rural communities.
Thank you very much for those explanations. So we're being asked to report back to Cabinet. Do we have any feedback in terms of content, i.e. do you think the money's going in the right places? I'm assuming that's the sort of feedback you're wanting. Does everyone think the budget is the way they want to see the money apportioned? Or does anyone have any feedback in terms of...
Do we really have a choice?
It doesn't matter if it's not pre-soaked or pre-rinsed.
Or even if you use the quick cycle. But what does matter...
Eri, yeah, do we have a choice? I mean, because this is a bit like Brexit, isn't it? It's being pushed on us no matter what. So, hey, now wouldn't that be cool in a nightclub?
There's feeling good and there's feeling pure gym good.
Whatever perfume is.
Solid. I mean,
well, as solid as it can be.
Does anyone have any content-based suggestions?
I mean, I can have. We will have a conversation before the budget. I mean, certainly, we've got a conversation tomorrow. I think in terms of the way you present the capital programme, I think it could be a lot better. The summary you put at the end shows where the money comes from in terms of grants, capital receipts. I think if you actually demonstrated the capital in that format, it'd be a lot easier for us to actually determine where because where we get a public sector grant, what's the point debating that? That's money that's coming in regardless. So there's no point any of us chewing that over. Where you have the discretion will be in the capital projects that you want to borrow money for, or they are funded from capital receipts. You can't see when you look at the programme. I know it's in a column down there, you can see where the money is coming from, but there's beep out on the page. So that's just some feedback I would give you in terms of.
Like I say, I cannot find these forms online.
Yeah, of course. Do you mean for each individual scheme? Because the capital bids at the bottom of the table, it does say where it's coming from for that.
Come on, click your microphone. This is not me. This is actually District Council feed. It is pre-recorded. It's not running live. And this is annoying because they do get edited sometimes. And possibly muted.
I'm happy that we've got the debate down to one part of the budget now, and that is the biggest focus.
Don't jump to conclusions.
No. I'm happy. The focus is always specific. So just so that I can get it straight, some officers know what the ask is it that each project, we say where each project is going to be funded?
Come on, click your microphones. For goodness sake. Come on, YouTube channel person doing this. You could at least remind them. Somebody remind them. For fuck's sake. I don't think on their live streams, I don't think they allow comments. I think it's a bit like Norfolk District Council.
Cromer.
Can't
Cromer's
comment,
always the
fine.
debate. So for capital receipts and borrowing, you would like the breakdown, or? Yeah, just so I can, because obviously
it's a good idea.
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
That's fine, as long as I'm aware what the ask is, yeah.
So no one's got any other feedback on content? The money's all in the right place? Okay.
I wouldn't go as far as that. I don't think I've seen enough of it. I haven't absorbed it enough in order
Okay.
to do that. But
For today, I'll caveat that with for today. I mean, I do think if the narrative was strengthened, I mean, it's fantastic. We wouldn't ask them any questions. I mean, we wouldn't. That second home council tax, I'm still a little bit bemused by the revenue support grant and the extended producer responsibility. You may or may not be able to do this, but it's very. I know why you want to make it succinct, but it would be easier to understand if some of the. I would find it if some of the issues were explained in a little bit more depth. I don't know what other people think.
I absolutely agree with that. I think narrative is really important because it allows us to understand it a lot better. I think some of the questions today have come out that.
And you need to understand it. You are the
more of
people that need to understand this.
But I think some of that could have been in the narrative a bit more.
So we've fallen into the trap of too much information, not enough information again, and that seems to be where we lull in now. Is this because potentially you've not seen the medium-term financial strategy alongside it? Because I remember last year the committee really welcomed that for wider context, but I'm aware that that's coming in February.
My first year on the scrutiny.
How lucky are you?
So I'm
enjoying every minute.
I'm still asking the questions that probably you have already answered, but I think from where I've come from, my background is all about having that narrative so you can actually.
Let's get ready to
Let's
get ready, let's get ready, let's get ready to crumble. Watch us wreck the mic, watch us wreck the mic, watch us wreck the mic.
It's like a flashback to the 90s.
Let's get
Muller Corner Originals rhubarb
That was the 90s, wasn't it?
crumble is
What's
back.
going on there?
Well, it's wonderful to finally meet the girl I've heard so much about.
Oh, please let me.
Thank you, dear.
You see, that's one of the things when you're not going live and you're doing playback, you have to put up with the adverts.
That people have that information.
So
least I can skip.
normally when the budget comes, you get the whole lot. We don't normally do it like this. So if you have chance to look at the cabinet papers for Monday, that's all the information. If after looking at the medium term financial strategy, you still feel like there's a gap, I feel like there's a little bit of work for us to do to talk
You wanna
about
go
the national
wheeze?
picture. And we probably could strengthen the LGR aspect of it. So, but if you look at the cabinet papers, please do, and just read the medium term financial strategy, because that should give you the whole picture. And thanks to Officer King last year, he did the unbelievable job of bringing a paper to a review and scrutiny committee and it not
We loved
and
it.
it
We loved
meeting
it.
every single need. If you can read that and then see if there's still a gap, I think because we're not seeing everything as we normally would, I think that's probably where the gap is coming. And the business rate stuff happens on Monday at Cabinet. So it's a really interesting read. It's quite thick. If you can get a hold of a paper copy, hopefully that might add some more of the context that you're missing.
I mean, in all fairness, I think some of it is, the narrative is a bit slimmer than it perhaps could
Online
be. For
copy would be
example,
nice.
the revenue support grant on line 19 isn't explained on the subsequent page, while other lines are 14, 15, 16, 17 to 23. I suppose it is sort of explained there, but I didn't pick it up. And I just think, I know we have this debate all the time, but I feel it's a little bit slimmed down from how it used to be. You asked for feedback, Lucy.
Yeah.
So we're just saying that we want to give you some feedback. And given that we can't move any money around and that we have to spend all that money on the LGR reserves, etc. And the other feedback I think I picked up was it would be useful for councillors to have information on business rate relief, which I think you're picking up on Monday, because then we'll be able to talk to our residents. Councillor
Do you
Gray.
think it really is important, as a business owner and such, it's really important that councillors engage with their local businesses and explain as much as they can, or if not, get an officer to help them to understand it? Because what you wouldn't want to see is people getting scared, closing businesses needlessly because maybe they don't understand, or for accidental misinformation to happen. Certainly, I
More
believe
people worried
the
about getting in
Hive
debt,
Priest on the
Mel.
outskirts of Fakenham did put out a media post stating quite plainly that actually was nothing to do with government pressures or anything else. They'd taken the business as far as they could and they were moving on. You take from that what you will, but it is important that we as councillors engage on that stuff. I think Sean was actually really helpful in our meeting yesterday about understanding that.
Okay, so
I accept that. There's only one caveat there, that it's not good practice to say anything other than that if you're selling your business. So I just take that with a bit of
okay, that's
I would-
slightly
yeah.
getting off the point here.
Yeah.
So has anyone minded to give any feedback to Cabinet then? Other than the narrative could be strengthened. And the fact that we need, I think we need some sort of pack for councillors on business rates relief, but that's not necessarily something for Cabinet necessarily. So is that correct? Am I hearing lack of enthusiasm? Okay. Okay, so Adam, did you get that down? Okay, lovely. Good to that. Concludes our discussion of the revenue budget for today. More to come. And we'll look forward to the bigger pack.
Wow.
For putting everything in perspective. Thank you very much indeed for all the work you've done and for getting it to us in time, and see you next week.
Yay!
Lovely. So we now.
Is it finished? Has it
So now we
finished?
move on to agenda item 12, the Cabinet Work Programme. Does anyone have any
Right.
comments on that?
People, we need to stand up and have a stretch and have a another music video. I think is important. What we're going to go for this time? Any suggestions? Suggestions are always welcome. Because I am going to get up, I am going to make a drink, I'm going to stretch my back a little bit, and we want a good song to do that too. Let's go for, oh, I love this one. We're going to go for this one, guys. As soon as the advert finishes, we're going to go for this one. And we're going to have a bit of a stretch. And put kettle on. So, once this is done, I shall see you in about 3 minutes.
Everything is built in and ready to launch. It's a new world of creation.
So, right, here we are. We're back to go for the next bit. See what they're discussing. Oh, how many minutes? How many minutes more have we got to go? That is the question. We are at 10 minutes. We've got 10 more minutes to go. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Where's the play button?
No. Overview and scrutiny work programme.
There we go.
Do you lead that?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, a little bit on the work program, or at least on the action tracker. Hopefully, got my email. Had a couple of sort of updates for about things that I couldn't obviously put in the pack because I came after we'd obviously published the pack. We had a bit of an update on the rural strategy. Not that there was really much feedback to give, really, other than that there is no sort of set deadline they have to do that by. But the assistant director is going to get a sort of timetable of when they are planning to sort of get that achieved by. A little bit of sort of lack of resource, unfortunately, is why they've not sort of got around to that currently. And then we had the sort of finally, I've been trying to trace that, is obviously back from September, if you can remember that. We did write out, obviously, on back of the HOSC update, and we've had a letter back from the Minister of Health there about the closure of the Health Watch in Norfolk. So hopefully you received all that. But in terms of the work programme, we'll probably obviously have to digest today's session on mobile connectivity. Obviously, we've got a private session coming up with Vodafone 3 in on March the 4th. So hopefully with that, what the positives that we brought, particularly with around the questioning, hopefully in the format, we can sort of feed into that session that is due in March and hopefully strengthen that. And equally, then obviously we can consider a few of those other things that we sort of floated some suggestions that we could look at in the work program going forward. We haven't had much luck, or I haven't had much luck in getting a deprivation session. If you remember, I was looking at getting a contact to do as some presentation just sort of in private in session with us as a committee on breaking down those deprivation figures and maybe how that could feed into some of those things that we were looking at, potentially in doing things like access to GPs, public transport, dentists. That's not really been that forthcoming for various reasons. That's not the reason. That's not to say that we can't look at that data, but obviously that might take a little bit longer. We've obviously our data analysis is obviously currently off at the moment. I think we covered that previously, so we would have to look at that ourselves. Maybe a bit more mindful to focusing down what we can achieve on that work program currently, and what we should be looking at as well. Obviously, the public transport side of things. Obviously, county do sort of look at that on a themselves with their own overview and scrutiny committee. So if we are going to sort of touch on that, we probably need to really drill down and focus on what we can achieve or what outcomes we do want. Again, maybe looking at the mobile connectivity session, particularly for myself, as a way of learning from that, what's worked well and what we could do better. And obviously maybe then we could probably more, obviously we've got all these financial items to get through February, and then in come March, we could probably perhaps look at that, what we want to sort of focus on next, once we've got over the current sort of finance and mobile connectivity items, if you're in agreement. But
Should we be prioritising things to bring forward in March? Because it's not that, if you want to bring people here.
Yeah.
I think we're probably a little bit short notice to be doing that, aren't we? But
Are we?
it gives us a goal
Are
to look
you?
forward. We've got the finance stuff to deal with first, haven't we? And we can think as we go forward. There's nothing wrong with a couple of virtual meetings after then to start maybe setting our direction a bit and nailing it down. I think Adam's right with the MNO stuff. The option to sit there and really nail down what we were trying to look at was really beneficial for all of us, I think, and then helped that session be far more than it could have been. So yeah.
So am I detecting any appetite to determine what topics to bring forward later in the year? Is it too late in the day?
Have we invited Anglian Water back at any time? I'll get the rubbish from them, but it's still worth nailing down, maybe with the sort of focus we've just used with the telecoms.
How about
Public transport and speed
public
limits?
transport? How about the coastal erosion?
We've obviously got ambulance response times. Anyone got any views about anything that we could look at?
I think we need to start looking at the evidence basis first, don't we? Before asking the questions. What is the evidence? What already exists? We fell foul of that a little bit with thanks to the government delivering our paper there just before Christmas. But we need to have a good look first, don't we? And prioritise that. But Anglian Water, if they were to come back again, using
Yeah,
our
so
new strategy might work a bit better.
I think if they came back, we could look more at water.
Is this the meeting that they had
We have quite a
with
lot
Mel?
on
Is this when they talked
water
about the
treatment.
wastage and everything?
Probably.
Was that in a
almost as far as we
district
could go, but we
council
have- we could go
meeting, was
further
it?
on water resilience.
Yeah, I think resilience is going to be a key issue. I mean, I just look at potential growth coming from North Walsham over the next 15 years. And as I said before, 2 water towers built in the early 1950s, and the town was only around 5,000 people.
I'd hate to throw water on that fire, but haven't we asked that question over and over and over every time?
Yeah.
If we keep asking that same question, expecting a different answer, I think we probably all need to visit elsewhere. We need to look at that differently. Maybe if we were to look where all of their infrastructure regarding Anglian Water, like their meters and everything, are actually falling apart in the roads and destroying our highways, that might lead to a more interesting conversation.
I think we should. So if we were going to scope out what we wanted.
We
from
need to
public transport, for example, or
nationalise
the
our
dentists
water
or
again, really,
ambulance
don't we?
sometimes. How are we going to do that then?
I think we'll need a session to, well, first we'll probably need to gather what is being said, what is actually being said about those things.
Do you want a scoping session to talk about what we're going to discuss?
I think
later
we
in
need
the
to
year in
nail
terms
them
of
down.
Overview rather than scrutiny, because scrutiny will be
Yeah.
February's scrutiny, and then we get a bit of a breather as far as scrutiny is concerned. So would people be up for an online quick scoping session? No?
I am.
Yes? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
The focus I'm getting from residents is mobile connectivity, right? Water. That's it. You know, I've had very few questions on
State of our public
which
pavements,
surprises me
coastal
because,
erosion,
you know, as a rural community, I
business
had
rates,
virtually no
obviously.
transport. But those 2 issues are forefront in their minds, you know. So I think we're on the
Dentistry,
right track with those 2
doctors,
issues.
schools.
Okay, I think we should.
Same stuff.
I think we need
close it,
some,
convene,
Same
have some
stuff.
thoughts about, obviously there's water and mobile connectivity, but for me, it's also ambulance response times for Councillor Cushing as well. And so, you know, and it might be, and it's people not being able to get to hospital appointments because it's 5 buses. So I think there's quite a mishmash here, but I think we need to refresh our minds and have a chat about it if everyone's up for that. Yeah, okay. So
Excuse me, we've paid for this and we're doing all the work.
Yes, and you're doing ever so well.
We don't seem to be getting anywhere.
Don't be silly.
Oh, I like this guy. I like that actor.
Get ready.
The property ladder can be an uphill struggle.
At Skipton, we believe in fairness. So
I think, does that conclude, is that sufficient, Adam?
Yeah, I was just going to add, really, I think obviously what Paul said as well, I think what we've learned from today, we can feed into angling, something like the angling water, to really drill down and say, you know, what could we focus on, and perhaps learn from that and focus on to something, because they are willing to come in, with the down every 6 months to come in, but obviously it's important we're not just bringing them in with no sort of focus. So obviously, as you say, Paul, we could probably learn from the M&O session today, and obviously and hopefully sort of feed into that and other scoping things on the work programme, that obviously we could then sort of really drill down and get more outcomes that we are achievable, but also that we want will cover some of those other items, I think, Chair, because obviously again we could look at the data, and I could certainly look at it before the March meeting. I'm conscious obviously with February's all financial, but if you're happy sort of for me to arrange a scoping session that we could sort of drill down.
Yeah, people up for a scoping session, good, yes. Okay, lovely.
Yeah,
Okay, I think, can we declare the meeting closed then? Sorry, no, we're not.
Oh, how many hours has it been? How much longer have we got? 1 minute left.
No, we haven't. You didn't answer any questions, baby.
I don't really think
Microphone. Use your microphones.
No, but I think we have a conduit for that. I think that's a bit more complicated. Anglo Water are a monopoly and they will tell us what's going on, but they're not going to tell you because of the competitive.
We were incredibly lucky that
Yeah.
we got anybody where mobile networks are concerned to actually turn up,
I think-
and he inadvertently gave away some things to us, but
And-
I'm
yes.
happy for the meeting
And
to
I think the Vodafone one will be possibly more granular, and that will be helpful. But I think if you have specific questions, we now have someone who will answer them. I totally agree. Well, let's leave that. Okay, now can I close the meeting?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can close the meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your help today. It's been very.
Yes. Oh, kidnapped. Wowzers. Right. We've just got one more thing to look at before I switch off, which is this page right here. The Mobile UK network. This certainly is interesting if anybody wants to know what is happening within the area. You've got one here that you can click onto. I just need to bring you over to it because it opens up in a new window. So we have this one right here. The signalchecker.co.uk. Let's put in North Horsham. Oh. Oh no, hang on. I need a postcode. I don't know, is that one? Or is that invalid as well? Normally you can just put in the, yeah, it's not going to do it, is it? Okay, let's do the one down there. Right, so this is what we have. So 3, voice, 3G, 5G, indoor, outdoor. So 3G has really been switched off then, hasn't it? I couldn't tell you who I'm with. I know mine comes up in April and I will be changing it. So it'll literally cost me a couple of quid each month rather than what I am on. Let's click on the top one simply because it is the top one. Are you still with me? No. Right, let me just switch that one off. Let me just bring you over to I think it's that one. Right, that is the page I am on. And that is the page you are looking at. See, any post, well, I just have. Doesn't really say much, does it? But yeah, that is a rough idea. I'm not quite sure what voice means. Does anybody know what voice means? Good coverage, you may expect problems, no coverage. What have we got here? Some models of phones are just better at getting signal than others. A phone with a low battery can also affect the way your phone works, depending on the model. I actually haven't heard of that one before. The weather, believe it or not, the weather can interfere with your mobile signal. Heavy rain and snow can degrade the signal temporarily. If you are traveling in a car or a train, you might find your signal will be affected as you move from strong signals into areas to weak or no signal areas. Well, yeah. So hills, buildings, being in a basement, random, or underground will affect your mobile signal. So in the meantime, we have, oh, sorry, I didn't take you over to that page, did I? So yeah, in the meantime, it's a case of wait and see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put notification bell on the district council thingamabobby and hopefully catch the next live. And then that way we haven't got to worry about adverts, but we can still take breaks. So that's good. Right, 3 hours and 32 minutes. 3 hours and 32 minutes that we probably aren't going to get back again. So that's it for now. Catch you later.